Chapter 635. Alif was astounded and furious. The injuries on his body weren't serious since he blocked them in time, but this was the first time someone had hurt him. As a great sage, he held a high position in the holy temple. He was used to giving orders and having others treat him with respect. However, Wang Teng refused to give in to him and even refuted him many times. He felt that his ego was crushed. Anger boiled in his heart. "Froze, what are you doing? Move." Alif's face turned dark as he glared at Froze, who was still hesitating. Froze was put in a dilemma. In regards to this matter, they weren't in the right. If he acted, the consequences would be unpredictable. But he looked at Alif's cold gaze and sighed, feeling bitter. The officer was weaker than the commander. If he didn't act, he would offend Alif. Regardless of what consequences there would be, Alif wouldn't let him go. "Sorry about this," he looked at Wang Ting and said to him using voice transmission. Wang Ting ignored him. He scoffed and looked at the two of them fearlessly. Froze felt his head hurting when he saw his dauntless look. He blamed the higher authorities of the Holy Temple for sending this idiot to take care of this matter. Instead of resolving the issue, he made it worse. But the arrow was already on the bow. Alif was delighted when he saw Froze joining the battle. He looked at Wang Ting coldly. The force in his body exploded as a dazzling sword glow blossomed from his sword. Sounds were heard in the air. If one listened carefully, one could hear the faint sound of the sword vibrating. This was sword conscious. Alif had experienced Wang Ting's power, so he knew that he couldn't take him down using normal means. Even he had to exert all his strength. On the other side, Froze decided to act too. A long spear had appeared in his hand. A sharp golden spear glow shot out from the tip of the spear, with a faint spear conscious intertwining around it. Boom! The two of them moved and attacked Wang Ting from both sides. Alif wielded his long sword. The impact waves grew more violent as he slashed his sword at Wang Ting. Froze stabbed his long spear out. A ray of spear glow cut through the air. Wang Ting held Mo Q in his hand and fought with the two of them. He wasn't at any disadvantage. The three of them were locked in an intense fight. In the Cancer Palace, the ground was broken, and bumps were seen everywhere. Many of the pillars were smashed into pieces. The place was in ruins. Alif and Froze felt their eyes twitching continuously. This was an important structure of Mount Saint. It had existed for many years, but today, it was getting wrecked by Wang Teng. It would be a mistake to underestimate the aftereffects of a general stage martial warriors fight. No matter how strong the materials of the Zodiac palaces were, they would also break under the force of a general stage martial warriors attack. Alif and Froze exchanged glances with one another and dashed out of the Cancer Palace. They wanted to lure Wang Ting into the sky to fight. However, Wang Ting didn't take the normal path. He threw his blade out and smashed a huge hole on the roof of the palace. Amidst the explosion, he stepped on the air and caught up with the two of them. They stood opposite one another. Looking at the conspicuous large hole on the roof, the muscles on Alif's face twitched uncontrollably. He must have done it on purpose. Froze knew how evil Wang Teng was, so he didn't find it weird. Nevertheless, the corners of his lips still twitched involuntarily. Damaging the Cancer Palace because of a fight was reasonable, but creating a hole on purpose was a little outrageous. "No one can save you after all the crimes you have committed today." Alif stared intently at Wang Teng and shouted angrily. "Come and catch me." Wang Teng remained calm and hooked his fingers at his opponent. "Come. Don't hesitate. Come and catch me." Then, his expression changed, and he shouted, "Come." Alif was stunned by his shout. He looked at Wang Teng, puzzled. He didn't understand what was happening. They were the ones supposed to catch Wang Ting. Why was he acting fiercer than them? Froze's expression turned strange. He felt that his horizons had been expanded. A person could be timid, but he must still sound fierce. Visit Riadel. Me for extra chapters. Look at Wang Teng. The moment he opened his mouth, Alif got stunned. Alif regained his senses quickly. His face turned green as he turned angry from embarrassment. Gritting his teeth, he said, "You, good. Im indeed good," Wang Teng said. He choked and almost didn't manage to catch his breath. This be *tch. Alif took a deep breath. He felt that he should stop talking to Wang Ting. If not, he would die from anger. He suddenly waved his hand. 11 golden rays shot out and flew towards the other 11 zodiac palaces, apart from the Cancer Palace. 12 holy knights, listen to my order, a shout came out of Alif's mouth. Froze didn't have any time to react when Alif acted just now. After hearing his announcement, his expression changed tremendously. He looked at Alif in disbelief. He wanted to activate all 12 holy knights. Ever since the dawn of the martial arts era and the return of Mount Saint on Earth, there had never been a situation where all 12 holy knights were called at once. Yet, he broke this ancient rule to catch Wang Ting. The holy knight's responsibility was to guard the zodiac palaces. They couldn't be activated easily. Wasn't Alif afraid of getting punished by the higher-ups for creating this huge scene? At this moment, a token appeared in front of the remaining 11 holy knights in their zodiac palaces. They looked at the token and heard Alif's voice. Some of them frowned, some were hesitant, some felt helpless, some were in deep thought, and some were speechless. Their expressions varied a lot. Very soon, some holy knights accepted the token and disappeared from their palace. Others chose to ignore it and receded into the darkness of their palaces. Many figures appeared above the Cancer Palace. There were 7 in total. These people all exuded an extraordinary aura. They weren't old, all around 30, and they were wearing their divine constellation armors. They landed beside Alif. Karl from the Gemini Palace was among them. The rest were all unfamiliar faces. Alif frowned when he saw only 7 people here. A sinister look appeared in his eyes, but he didn't say anything. 7 people were enough. He didn't expect all the holy knights to come. After all, some of them were outrageously powerful and held special status in the holy temple. Also, they only listened to the goddess. Other people couldn't activate them. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 636, Grabbing Fate by the Throat. Everyone, please help me catch this person. Alif glanced at the 7 holy knights that came and said to them in a low voice. None of the holy knights spoke. They sized up Wang Ting with a look of interest. This fellow fought from the Taurus Palace to the Cancer Palace, beating all the 3 holy knights inside and even killing Margus. Karl, you have been defeated by him. Why do you have the face to appear here? One of the holy knights laughed and said. Demia. Karl's expression was ugly. His words stabbed him in his heart and touched his sore spot. Moreover, he spoke in front of everyone, embarrassing him greatly. He appeared here because he felt regret. He wanted to catch Wang Ting personally. However, Demia's words made him appear narrow-minded. He felt humiliated. If you're so strong, catch him personally, Karl said with a black face. H, do you think him as useless as you? Demia snorted. You. Karl was indignant. Alif turned green in anger. The holy knights either kept quiet or argued with each other. No one cared about him, making him a little awkward. Fortunately, at this moment, Edward from the Leo Palace said, All right, let's not argue every time we meet. Let's catch him first. Do you think we should let him run wild on Mount Saint? The others turned to look at Karl and Demia. The indifferent gazes pressurized the duo. They snorted and turned their heads away. They stopped their useless quarrel. Then, everyone looked at Wang Ting. The holy knights scattered around Wang Ting without any exchanges of words, surrounding him in the middle. Wang Ting remained calm. He glanced around him and smirked. Were they planning to attack him together? How naive. His specialty was gang fights. He had no trouble taking down an entire group of people. Who wants to go first? Edward remained conceited. He didn't plan to attack Wang Ting together, so he asked everyone this question. Demia, why don't you go first? Take him down alone. Let Karl see how you do it. Yarrow from the Capricorn Palace teased. They laughed light-heartedly with indifference and arrogance on their faces. It was as if they knew they could beat up Wang Ting however they wanted. Even if Wang Ting had defeated 3 Zodiac Palaces and killed Margus from the Cancer Palace, they didn't think that he could cause any trouble under their encirclement. Mind you, the higher you went, the stronger the power of the Holy Knights of the Palaces. Besides Karl, the other 6 Holy Knights were all more powerful than Margus. Every formidable warrior had their arrogance. The stronger a person was, the more ego they had. Unfortunately, they had met Wang Ting. He remained nonchalant as he listened to their contemptuous tones. His emotions weren't affected. Stop arguing. Just come together. One sentence was enough to turn everyone silent. The 7 Holy Knights stared at Wang Ting without blinking. They seemed to have heard something unbelievable. You're looking for death. The 7 Holy Knights spoke one after another. Their gazes were cold as they bellowed. Ha ha ha. Wang Ting suddenly laughed. Why are you laughing? Edward frowned. Because you're so funny. Wang Ting chuckled. Suddenly, his expression turned eerie, and he shouted, since you're so impatient, let me send you on your journey. In an instant, a frightening force swarmed out of Wang Ting's body. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth. The forces of all 5 elements exploded together. The different elements of the forces seemed to have accumulated into a sea of forces. Waves towered and crashed into the shore. At the same time, the emerald-glazed flame was released too. It surrounded him and made him look like the Emperor of Flames. The 7 Holy Knights were flabbergasted. Immediately, they felt that they had underestimated Wang Ting. An ordinary martial warrior wouldn't possess such a frightening force. However, Wang Ting didn't give them any chance to think. They didn't see him moving, but a few sharp rays of light shot out from the flames around him. They were covered with fire and left a trail of flames behind them as they flew towards the Holy Knights. Visit Ria.me for extra chapters. The rays of light came quickly and abruptly, reaching the Holy Knights in the blink of an eye. They were aimed for their eyes or their hearts. Without any exception, every single one targeted their vital points. The 7 Holy Knights squinted. They hurriedly made their response. Demir from the Scorpio Palace raised his finger, and a crimson ray of light shot out from his sharp fingernail. It crashed into the ray of cold light. Edward from the Leo Palace was the most direct. His fist shimmered and multiple fist shadows appeared to block the sharp rays of light. The other Holy Knights executed their own skills to block the attack. Explosions rang continuously in the air. Unfortunately, no one could hit those sharp rays of light. The light rays seemed to have turned into agile snakes. They twisted and turned in the air, drawing lines of flame in the sky as they crashed furiously around the 7 Holy Knights. Right then, an agonizing scream alarmed the others. They turned their heads and noticed that Wang Ting had appeared in front of Karl. He was grabbing his throat with one hand and raising his body. Karl's both arms had been penetrated. Fresh blood dripped down. How dare you come again after I let you off once? You're courting death. Wang Ting sneered. His first target was Karl. Wang Ting understood his skills the best, so it wouldn't be difficult to deal with him as long as he knew what attacks to use. He was going to kill him to serve as a warning to others. If he didn't show the others his skills, they might think that he was easy to bully. Humiliation flashed past Cole's eyes when he heard this. However, Wang Ting was grabbing his throat, so he couldn't move at all. At this moment, he finally understood the difference between him and Wang Ting. But how could this person be so strong? Karl didn't fathom it. This was too unbelievable for him. His face turned red, and he was about to suffocate to death. Release him. Edward and the others shouted. They wanted to help Karl, but they were blocked by the shooting star spiral. Are you ordering me? Wang Ting glanced at everyone and sneered. Even at this moment, they hadn't realized the situation and still dared to shout and order him around. What a bunch of idiots. Release him. If not, you will have to die today, Demir said angrily. Wang Ting smiled. He looked at Karl and said, don't blame me, blame them. Look, is this something they should say? They are trying to harm you. Fear appeared in Cole's eyes. He struggled frantically, but it was all in vain. Although he wanted to speak, he couldn't make any sound because Wang Ting was grabbing his throat. Sad little thing. Wang Ting looked at him, struggling desperately. He shook his head and exerted energy on his fingers. A crisp sound was heard. Everyone was staggered and filled with disbelief. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 637, Coles, Dead. Demir widened his eyes in shock when he saw this scene. He felt lost. Karl, who was arguing with him a moment ago, was dead. He thought that with 6 other holy knights here, Wang Teng would hesitate before taking any action and wouldn't dare to kill Karl. But the martial warrior from country Xia wasn't afraid. He killed without any worry and didn't take his threat to heart. Demir felt a burning sensation on his face. The other holy knights were dead silent too. Karl was a holy knight, but he got killed right in front of their eyes. His neck was broken like a duck getting killed. This humiliating death was the greatest provocation to the holy knights. Edward and the others looked extremely ugly as they glared at Wang Teng. Arrogance was no longer on their faces. Wang Ting smiled gently as he looked at everyone. He found their sudden change quite interesting. Indeed, they would be angry. He had successfully ignited their fury. They looked more humane now. They were no longer high and mighty holy knights. These people just lacked a beating. Looking at Wang Ting's smile and his calm expression, a bad feeling shot right into Alif's head. The second one. The higher authorities had asked him to solve the conflict and end the matter. But because of his actions, another holy knight had lost his life. Only 10 holy knights were left. Suddenly, he regretted using a hard stance to solve this issue. But it was too late. Wang Teng released his grip around Cole's neck and swung his hands, throwing his corpse to the side. Edward and the others were infuriated. They shouted in anger. Someone released his force and sent Cole's corpse into the cancer palace below so that he wouldn't slam on the ground directly. Holy knights mustn't be humiliated. We will apprehend you and let you experience the cruelest punishment of the holy temple. Edward's voice was filled with extreme anger. That's right. We mustn't let him escape today. Yarful from the Aquarius temple was a beautiful lady with long blue hair. She had kept quiet all this while, but when she saw Karl getting killed, she finally stepped out. After all, she was a part of the holy knights. So young yet so ruthless. Your killing intent is too strong. If we allow you to leave, you might kill more people in the future. This statement was directed at Wang Ting. A hint of disdain could be heard in her voice, as if Wang Ting was the most heinous of criminals. Wang Ting's expression turned weird. Ever since he stepped on the martial arts path, he had seen many evil people who killed others without thinking. However, this was his first time meeting a righteous martial warrior like this lady. Also, her values were a little strange. These holy knights came to catch him and even wanted to kill him. Couldn't he resist? Wang Ting knew that he wasn't a good person, but he wouldn't kill the innocent. All the people he killed courted their own deaths. Yet, in this lady's eyes, he was labeled a serial killer. Wang Ting was so angry that he started laughing. What kind of people were they? Didn't the holy temple give these holy knights some moral education? Why are you laughing? Yarful scoffed. Laughing at your immaturity, little kid. Wang Ting didn't hide the smile on his face. He even emphasized the last 2 words. You. Yarful was furious. She wanted to beat him up. Yarful, don't fall into his trap. This fellow has a sharp tongue. He wants to rile you up so that he can pick us apart one by one. A man suddenly stopped Yarful. He shook his head slowly. This man was extremely handsome. His beauty wasn't limited to that of a man or a woman. It was a beauty that combined all the greatness of the world. His vibe was refined, and his posture was elegant. He looked like a deity who walked out from the legends. He didn't seem like a human. Wang Ting glanced at his face emotionlessly. He felt no jealousy. Instead, he was just a little worried about him. Why do you have to be so beautiful? Aren't you worried that heaven will be jealous and strike you with lightning? Who are you? Wang Ting asked curiously. Pisces Palace, Blofeld. The pretty man opened his mouth and said. Visit Ria Del. Me for extra chapters. You must have had a tragic childhood, right? Wang Ting asked. What do you mean? Blofeld felt that Wang Ting's tone was a little strange but failed to catch his meaning. He frowned. Your looks are outstanding. Wang Ting pointed at his face. Did any strange uncle lure you to look at goldfish when you were young? Veins popped out on Blofeld's forehead, yet even his angry face was better looking than others. However, this wasn't important. The main thing was, he was about to explode. He glared at Wang Ting with his beautiful eyes. To hell with looking at goldfish. He was a man. A man. He didn't want to look at any goldfish. Wait, it didn't matter if he wanted to see it or not. This had never happened. At the same time, Edward and the other holy knights looked at Blofeld strangely as they thought of something indecent. Damn it, it was all that fellow's fault. Wang Ting's words were too powerful. Even in this tense atmosphere, he managed to lead them astray. Really? Wang Ting asked again. He touched his chin and pondered. In that case, did he trick you by offering to buy lollipops or ice popsicles? Ah. Blofeld was burning with anger. He screamed into the sky. He was still persuading Yarfel not to act rashly a moment ago, but he couldn't control his own emotions and charged forward. Edward and the others grabbed Blofeld's shoulders tightly. Don't be impulsive. Let me go. I want to kill him. I want to kill him. Blofeld shouted while struggling. Edward had a headache. He couldn't stop Blofeld. Hence, he said, everyone, let's do it together. Yes. The others nodded and acted simultaneously. 6 forces soared into the sky. They merged together and formed a frightening force torrent. It shot towards Wang Ting. Wang Ting's gaze turned sharp, the force in his body gushing out like a torrent. The forces of the 5 elements were released in their entirety. Earlier, while completing the merger of the 5-element fist conscious, he had gained some valuable insights. The 5-element forces were similar. An idea flashed into his mind. The 5-element forces twirled in circles, reinforcing and restraining with one another. They collided with the force torrent formed by the 6 forces of the Holy Knights. The 2 force torrents crashed into each other and created an earth-shattering explosion. The loud rumble spread far and wide. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 638, Who's Next? An astonishing scene appeared in the sky. 2 force torrents collided fiercely, looking like 2 vertical Milky Ways. For some time, no side was able to gain an upper hand. However, this was 1 person versus 6 people. The 6 holy knights turned grim. They looked at Wang Ting in bewilderment. 5 elements. This martial warrior from country Xia possessed all 5 elements. What kind of talent was this? Since they were able to become holy knights, they must be talented, more so than the normal martial warriors. However, in front of Wang Ting, they felt extremely normal. This was a huge blow to them. Was this fellow a monster? They finally stopped belittling Wang Ting. He was indeed powerful. No wonder Margus and Karl had died in his hands. They died for a reason. Alif's face turned black when he realized that the 6 holy knights couldn't take down one Wang Ting. He released his force and merged it into the holy knight's force torrent. Froze, he shouted. Froze felt helpless. He had no choice but to release his force and help the others in resisting Wang Ting. Boom. With the addition of their forces, the holy knight's force torrent expanded in size. It bore down on Wang Ting like a huge pillar. Wang Ting's force torrent kept moving back. He snorted. The other forces in his body surged out. Poison, wind, ice, lightning. Boom, boom, boom. As these 4 forces merged into the torrent, his force torrent expanded multiple times too. How is that possible? Edward and the others were dumbstruck. This fellow still had more cards up his sleeves. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. Was he even human? Alif and Froze were appalled. They felt that their addition was useless. They couldn't fathom how strong Wang Ting truly was. Where was his limit? How was he able to release his force again and again like a bottomless pit? Wang Ting didn't waste any time. A green light flashed past his eyes. The emerald-glazed flame flew out like a giant fire dragon, spinning around the force torrent. It shot towards his opponents. Roar! The giant fire dragon roared and soared into the sky, bringing along its scorching heat. Shit! Edward and the others were shocked. They hurriedly retreated without any hesitation. Wang Teng's force torrent shot right into the sky. Boom, boom, boom. Force explosions rang continuously. The 6 holy knights, including Alif and Froze, were the first to bear the brunt. Even though they had retreated, they got hit by a huge impact and were thrown back 10 meters away. They appeared to be in a miserable state. Faces turning green, they felt exasperated. There were 8 of them, yet they were still at a disadvantage. What a huge joke this was. They exchanged glances with one another. Although they were frustrated, they still felt the lingering fear. If they hadn't retreated in time, they might have suffered serious injuries if they were hit directly by the force torrent. Alif's heart dropped when he noticed that everyone seemed frightened of Wang Ting. He hurriedly said, "He's alone. The force torrent must have exhausted most of his force. He probably only has 10 or 20% left." The others reacted immediately. Indeed, a martial warrior's force had its limit. A general stage martial warrior would have a greater reserve, but with Wang Ting's large-scale output a moment ago, his force reserve should have dried up. Wang Ting was still able to stand because of his exceptional potential. Even so, they didn't believe that he had much juice left in him. Wang Ting sniggered at their reaction. Edward and the others regained their confidence. Before Wang Ting moved, they dashed towards him, releasing their fists or slashing their blades and swords. Attacks rained down on Wang Ting's head. The holy knights didn't hold back. Wang Ting stood on the spot without moving. As expected, he's exhausted. Edward and the others were elated. Alif smiled uncontrollably when he saw this scene. He was overjoyed. Good, this is it. Take him down. Boom, boom, boom. The next instant, numerous attacks landed on Wang Ting. No, wait. Visit Ria Del. Me for extra chapters. Edward and the others noticed something amiss. Their attacks didn't hit anything, going through Wang Teng's body. Shadow. They were flabbergasted. The space behind Demia started distorting. Wang Teng's figure suddenly appeared like a ghost. He was holding a golden brick in his hand and instilling force in it. Once the brick became exceptionally heavy, he swung it down. Demia, be careful. Edward shouted. Demia squinted. He felt danger dawning on him and wanted to run away. Too late. Wang Teng smirked. The gold brick smashed violently on Demia's head. A large bump started growing on the poor guy's head at a visible speed. Demia staggered. His vision turned black, and he almost fainted. Bang, bang, bang. Wang Teng didn't show any mercy. He repeatedly smashed the brick on his head. The speed was astonishing. Demia turned into a pig's head quickly. Since you like to show off, I'll bestow you with the horns of glory. Wang Teng smiled before giving him one last smack. Boom. Demia crashed into the ground at the speed of light and fainted. There was dead silence. Everyone felt the corners of their lips twitching when they saw Demia's tragic state. They felt that Wang Ting was a devil in human clothing. He was suffocatingly evil. After taking one down, Wang Ting looked at the others. Who's next? His calm voice spread out. Then, he disappeared on the spot. Everyone's expression changed slightly. They took a step back involuntarily and glanced around them, searching for Wang Ting in vigilance. Wang Ting activated his space talent and hid between space. Even general stage martial warriors would have a hard time finding him. Yarfel. Blofeld suddenly yelled. Yarfel's expression underwent a huge change. She turned around, and her force shot out of her body. It gathered into a bottle above her head. Absolute zero, she roared. The next instant, a chill surged out of her body and spread to her surroundings. A layer of ice crystal appeared in the air. Everything around her was frozen, including Wang Ting who had appeared behind her. Sneak attack. Yarful heaved a sigh of relief in her heart, but on the surface, she sneered and appeared contemptuous. Bang! Suddenly, she felt excruciating pain coming from her head. She got hit with something. How is this possible? Astonishment appeared on her beautiful face. She didn't know what had happened. She had frozen Wang Teng. How did he appear behind her? Was he really a ghost? Didn't you say that I'm evil? Let me display my evilness then. Wang Ting's mocking tone sounded beside her ear. Then, dull thuds resounded outside the Cancer Palace. Bang, bang, bang. Chapter 639, I'm a Good Person. Bang, bang, bang. Dull thuds echoed in the sky. They sounded extremely conspicuous. After all, this sound originated from the collision of a holy knight's head with a brick. It wasn't due to two pieces of wood knocking against each other. Yarful was in a daze. She was elegant and refined, beautiful and noble. Yet, someone was hammering a brick on her head. She couldn't believe that anyone would do this to her. She never imagined that she would suffer such a treatment one day. This was too much. Bang! Ah! Wang Teng didn't show any mercy to this beautiful lady. Look at how smooth his actions were when he hammered her head. Yarful's beautiful small face got distorted instantly. Her fair and crystal-clear skin turned red and started swelling. Edward, Alif, and the others were stunned. Wang Teng sure was ruthless. He had the heart to hit a beauty like Yarful. Didn't he have any tender, protective feelings for the fairer sex? What an insensitive man. Of course, this thought only flashed through their mind. When Wang Teng appeared, they immediately surrounded him. At the same time, they wanted to save Yarful. What a poor little thing. It was tragic. A beautiful lady like her got beaten into a pig's head. It was unbearable. Ah! Yarful disregarded her image and started screaming. Her mind was spinning from the beating. She was stumbling, but she continued to struggle. She wanted to break free from Wang Ting's control. However, Wang Ting stuck onto her like plaster. The brick seemed glued to her head too. Wherever she went, she would get hit. None of the hits were missed. Ah, get off. The ice element force surged out of Yarful's body. She started wrecking her surroundings without looking. The ice force turned into sharp ice thorns with a bone-curdling chill. She fired them in all directions, hoping to push Wang Ting away. Last-ditch move. Wang Ting scoffed as green flames danced around him. Any ice thorns that got close were melted. They couldn't hurt him at all. On the other hand, the other holy knights had to retreat due to the ice thorns. Damn it! They were flaming in anger. Alif used his palm as a sword and shattered the ice thorns with his golden sword glows. He shouted, Yarful, stop attacking aimlessly. We can't get close. Wang Teng laughed. He felt that Yarful was an amazing support. What a stupid teammate. Yarful had already lost her cool. After the reminder, she realized the stupid thing she did and stopped attacking. Wang Ting took the chance to get closer and smashed the brick down again. He had to admit that the helmets the Holy Knights wore did quite a good job. If not, Yarful would have fainted a long time ago from his vicious hammering. Yarful had persevered for a long time. Hurry! Yarful shouted as she bore with the pain and humiliation. After she said this, she couldn't speak anymore. Wang Ting appeared in front of her and smiled at her. He slapped the golden brick on the front of her face. In Yarful's eyes, Wang Ting's smile was no different from a devil's. But soon, that face was replaced by a golden brick. The flat brick grew bigger in her eyes. Stop! A furious shout came from behind Wang Ting. Edward was the first to arrive. He punched his fists out violently. Lightning lion fists. Raw tilde lightning flickered behind him. Purple bolts of lightning congregated into the outline of a lion. It looked up and roared into the sky as the fist glow shot out. Yarful was elated. She was saved. However, Wang Teng didn't seem to have heard Edward. He didn't evade and the brick remained on track. It landed as planned on her face. Yarful was dumbfounded. Was this fellow crazy? He would rather get hit by Edward's fists than give up on hitting her. What grudges did they have? Why did he have to target her? Yarful didn't understand Wang Ting's thoughts. She felt that he was crazy. Bang! All her thoughts melted into thin air as the brick came. Yarful was slapped straight in the face. Her head swung backward from the powerful impact. Her neck was long and slender like an arrogant swan, but a line of blood shooting out of her nose besmirched her beauty. Everything seemed to have slowed down. The nose blood gleamed brightly under the sunlight like a precious art piece. Visit Ria.me for extra chapters. At this moment, Yarful's gaze had turned hazy. There were numerous questions in her mind, but they all turned into one word in the end. Why? On the other hand, Wang Ting felt amazing. He felt that he had risen to another stage. It feels good. If he hadn't hit her, his thoughts couldn't have been straightened out. Did he ever say that he wouldn't hit a lady? Did he? Even if he did, it didn't matter in this situation. There were only two kinds of people in the world. During a battle, gender wasn't important. There were only friends and foes. And the people in front of him were all foes. As his enemies, they shouldn't think they would receive special treatment as ladies. Wang Ting understood Yarful's confusion. He said calmly, "Look, I'm a good person. I hit you, but I won't kill you. So, next time, if you dare to say that I kill people like flies, I will hit you again." Fart. Yarful was dumbfounded. She felt so frustrated that she wanted to vomit blood. She finally understood why Wang Ting targeted her. This fellow chased after her fervently because of what she said earlier. What kind of person was he? She had never seen such a narrow-minded guy. His mind was narrower than a needle. Boom. At this moment, the fist behind him was only inches away. Wang Ting remained unmoved, though. A dazzling bolt of lightning struck his head along with the outline of a giant lion. Filled with resentment, Yarful saw Wang Ting's tall and lofty figure bathing in lightning. He was like a god from heaven. A hint of suspicion appeared in her heart. Could they even beat him? Wang Ting ignored Yarful. He looked expressionlessly at the outline of the lion. Ancient god's body. An occult golden symbol appeared on his forehead. It wasn't complicated, but it gave off a mysterious and holy aura. The next instant, Wang Ting released his fist. Strength of Ultima. Boom. Wang Teng's fist seemed ordinary and didn't cause any impact. It headed straight for the frightening lightning lion shadow. Boom. The two fist auras collided. Yarrow, Blofeld, and the others stared at the center of the collision. They were waiting to watch Wang Teng lose. Edward's lightning lion fist was the strongest fist skill among the holy knights. It contained the power of lightning and was extremely strong. Its power was a sight to behold. How could Wang Teng resist it? However, an unexpected scene appeared. The shadow of the lightning lion started cracking gradually after being hit by Wang Ting's ordinary-looking punch. It crumpled like dead leaves and broke into pieces. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 640. Beautiful people are meant to be hit. Terrifying energy exploded and swarmed out. Edward's expression changed. He was thrown out like a cannonball by the huge force. Cracking sounds could be heard coming from within his body. He seemed to have broken a few of his bones. Splurt. A mouthful of blood spilled out of his mouth. Edward was in disbelief. He didn't expect Wang Teng's punch to be so powerful. Despite specializing in fist skills, he got defeated by Wang Teng's punch. His strongest fist skill was like a joke in front of that incomprehensible monster. His fist skill couldn't withstand one round against Wang Teng's ordinary-looking punch. In that instant, Edward had an illusion. He felt that he was a 3-year-old child waving his punches in front of an adult. Childish. Funny. Weak. Edward had received a huge blow to his confidence. He lost control of his emotions. Edward. Yarrow and the others shouted. If you have time to worry about others, why don't you worry about yourself first? Wang Teng's calm voice resounded in the sky. He disappeared again. The expressions on the holy knights changed. But as holy knights, they had strong battle awareness, so they reacted immediately. Yarrow was the holy knight of the Capricorn Palace. He was stronger than Edward, and his battle skills were powerful too. He held his battle sword and slashed it horizontally in the air. Boom! A golden light cut through the sky, flying towards the empty right side at terrifying speed. As the sword glow flew over, a loud explosion was heard. Wang Teng appeared and punched his fist out, meeting the sword glow head-on. Yarrow was flabbergasted. He could feel his sword aura breaking down. Wang Teng was as powerful as ever. On the other side, Blofeld had also acted. Multiple gorgeous blood-red petals appeared out of nowhere. They floated in the air, covering the area around Wang Teng. Blood-red roses. Even when Blofeld attacked, his actions were beautiful. As the rose petals swam in the air, Blofeld raised his finger and tapped lightly. Force flowed out of his body. The petals suddenly encircled Wang Teng and spun around him. They seemed to have turned into a sea of petals. There was a terrifying whirlpool hidden in this sea. The petals turned into a whirlpool and spun violently. No one could see their shapes anymore. They had turned into a red sea, dazzling and dangerous. Poison force. Wang Teng's eyes shimmered as he stood in the middle of the petals' whirlpool. Besides Demia, there was another member who possessed the rare poison force among the holy knights. Furthermore, this person was the extremely beautiful Blofeld. This was unexpected. Blofeld even had such a powerful poison battle technique. Mind you, Wang Teng only had one poison force scripture currently and 0 battle techniques. However, Demia and Blofeld were different. They had the backing of a strong legacy. The tip of Mount Saint's strong foundation was put on display once again. These thoughts flashed past Wang Teng's mind. He looked at the enormous blood-red whirlpool and squinted. These petals formed from poison force were obviously poisonous. If he touched them, the consequences would be ghastly. Still, he wasn't concerned. He had the demon lotus poison body, so ordinary poison wouldn't affect him. Instead, it would just become nourishment for his physique. Go! Blofeld shouted. The blood-red petal whirlpool spun in the sky and headed towards Wang Teng. Boom! Wang Teng's reaction was direct. He released his fist. Strength of Ultima. The blood-red whirlpool paused for a moment in mid-air. Then, it got pushed into the sky by a large force and broke down into red droplets, which rained down on the ground. Splurt! Blofeld was astounded. He felt a frightening power coming for him. His face turned pale, and he vomited blood. Blofeld, move! Yarrow regained his senses. He rushed over quickly and shouted. He waved his battle sword, and sharp sword glows were formed. They slashed towards Wang Teng like bolts of lightning. Wang Teng swung his fist containing the strength of Ultima. A terrifying fist power destroyed the sharp sword glows instantly. If something couldn't be solved with one punch, hurl another punch. Boom, boom, boom. Yarrow's sword glows couldn't last long under Wang Teng's frightening punches. They disappeared without a trace. Wang Teng moved closer and smashed his brick down under his opponent's bewildered gaze. Visit Riadel. Me for extra chapters. Bang, bang, bang. Dull thuds were heard once again. Swoosh. At this moment, an extremely faint sound of the air compressing came from afar. Wang Teng's head turned numb. He felt a strong sense of danger on his back. There was even a slight pain at the spot where his heart was. He moved his thoughts and released his spiritual power. The shooting star spiral turned into a ray of sharp light. It darted towards the dazzling arrow that was flying towards his back at a high speed. Boom! The two objects collided in mid-air. The arrow was spinning. Wang Teng controlled his shooting star spiral so that it spun too. The tip of these two sharp weapons rubbed against each other continuously, igniting sparks. They were at a standstill. At the same time, Wang Teng continued to swing his brick and brutally knocked Yarrow unconscious. Then, he turned and looked into the distance. In the sky some distance away, a figure was holding a large bow. It was aimed at Wang Teng. There were no arrows on the bow, but force was congregating on it, gradually forming an arrow. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The person released his grip, and the arrow shot out. It turned into a shooting star, zooming straight at Wang Teng. Wang Teng's eyes lit up. Spiritual power flowed out from his forehead without stopping. He controlled the shooting star spiral and raised its speed to the maximum. It intercepted the force arrow. Cling clang. When the shooting star spiral collided with the arrow, ear-piercing metallic sounds were heard. After neutralizing the arrow's threat, Wang Teng continued to fly towards Blofeld. He raised his fist, forcing the other party to retreat continuously. I can't bear to hit his face, Wang Teng muttered to himself as he attacked. Blofeld was speechless and frustrated. This person didn't care about his feelings at all. What did he mean by he couldn't bear to hit his face? Should he thank him for showing mercy or be glad that he was good-looking? While his mind was wandering off, the brick in Wang Teng's hand slammed down without any hesitation. Blofeld was flabbergasted. Didn't you say that you couldn't bear to hit me? Why are you doing it? You have no shame. No. He struggled and stepped back. He didn't want his face to be ruined. Beautiful people are meant to be hit. Wang Teng stepped forward and hammered the brick down. Bang, bang, bang. In the end, Blofeld was bruised and swollen from the hitting. His beautiful face had lost its radiance. Deflated, he fell to the ground. You're the last one. Wang Teng turned around. He strode towards the last holy knight from the Sagittarius Palace. Chapter 641. No matter how many attacks you have, I will destroy them with a punch. Boom. Blofeld slammed onto the ground loudly. Wang Teng floated in the air and walked towards the holy knight of the Sagittarius Palace. A huge presence swarmed towards the holy knight like the water flooding from a broken dam. The expression of the holy knight of the Sagittarius Palace, Fletter, turned grim. All of them had underestimated this young man from country Shia. What was the result? Out of the 7 holy knights that came, 1 was dead, 5 were injured, and he was the only one left to face this brutal reality. Wait, there were still Froze and Alif. They had to face this martial warrior too. Fletter found some consolation amid all the despair he felt. He looked in their direction. Suddenly, he froze in shock. They were running away, damn it. They were putting their lives on the line by fighting with this young man, but these 2 bastards were running away. How could anyone be so shameless? Alif and Froze wanted to sneak away when Wang Teng and Fletter were fighting, but they were discovered by their own companion. The scene turned a little awkward. Fletter, bear with it. We're going to call reinforcements. Alif shouted. His speed increased exponentially as he ran towards the holy temple on the top of the mountain. Froze remained quiet. He felt thoroughly embarrassed, so he just ran away while staring at the ground. He wanted to get away from Wang Ting. He couldn't offend that brick. Fletter's face turned black. He cursed angrily in his heart. Wang Ting's expression was strange. His eyes shimmered, and poison force seeped out along with his spiritual power. They flew towards the space in front. The next instant, an invisible web appeared ahead of Alif and Froze. These 2 people were heaving a sigh of relief when they realized Wang Teng wasn't chasing them. But the next moment, they knocked into the giant web. What is this? They were astounded. They swung their weapons and wanted to break the obstacle in front. Cat. Wang Teng smirked. He controlled the poison web with his spiritual kineses and tied the 2 of them inside. Then, it was the same old trick again. The emerald-glazed flame started burning on the poison web. The scorching heat made it impossible for anyone to get closer. The flames were burning the poison force and creating extremely poisonous gas. It floated towards the 2 people. Alif and Froze's force started sizzling when it came into contact with the gas. Their weapons were starting to corrode too. The duo was shocked. They were forced to retreat because of the emerald-glazed flame and the poison gas. Poison force. You're a poison element martial warrior, Alif shouted in disbelief. 5 basic elements, then lightning force, and now, poison force too. How many elements did this monster possess? Froze found it unbelievable too. How could someone possess so many elements? This didn't make sense. Have fun inside. I'll take care of you later. Wang Teng sneered. Then, He ignored them and turned to face Fletter. Fletter's expression was as solemn as it could be. After seeing the ability Wang Ting had displayed so far, he felt his head churning. For someone to have such talents, he must be a monster. However, he was much stronger than Edward and the others. Among the 12 holy knights, he was one of the strongest. Hence, he wasn't afraid of fighting with Wang Ting. Your talent is amazing. The Holy Temple has made the wrong decision by choosing to be your enemy. Fletter took a deep breath and said, "Do you concede defeat?" Wang Ting asked with a strange expression. "No." Fletter shook his head. "Since we have reached this stage, both of us, you and the Holy Temple, will need an answer. We can only fight. Let's start then." Wang Ting remained expressionless and replied calmly, "Fight. Fight." The two of them bellowed in unplanned unison. Boom. A powerful aura exploded from their bodies and soared into the sky. When their auras collided in midair, an explosion as loud as thunder was set off. Within a blink of an eye, Wang Ting and Fletter had disappeared from their spots. They transformed into two rays of light, one green and one golden, and smashed against each other violently. Fletter held a golden bow in his hand. Although it was intended for long-range attacks, it could be used in close combat too. The bowstring on it was extremely sharp and created golden blade glows in the air. It slashed through space and went straight for Wang Ting. Mo Q appeared in Wang Ting's hand. He slashed it down and blocked the bow. Clang. The bow seemed to have been made from a special material. It wasn't damaged after it got chopped by Mo Q and continued to give off its sharp gold glow. Mo Q was half as tall as Wang Ting. He held it tightly and chopped it down, giving rise to a powerful force. He then clenched his left fist and hurled it out. Boom. Terrifying energy spurted out from his fist. Fletter's expression changed slightly. He flew back to evade Wang Ting's fist force. Visit Ria Del. Me for extra chapters. He reappeared some distance away and pulled his bow until it became a half circle. After a golden arrow formed on the longbow, he loosed it. Swoosh. Even though the sound wasn't loud, it still gave off a faint and shrill cry as it broke the sound barrier and cut straight through the air. The arrow was engulfed in golden light. It was exceptionally terrifying. The sharp aura hidden in this arrow seemed to be able to cut the very fabric of space. Wang Ting's eyes glinted as he gathered his golden blade conscious around Mo Q. The light on the blade was glaring. He slashed it horizontally in the sky. His attack was also sent out. Boom. The blade glow shot through space and crashed into the golden arrow. The sharp consciouses corroded each other. Both sides were unwilling to back down. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, the point of impact erupted, and a strong gale swept through the surroundings. Lightning sparked around Wang Ting. He dashed straight into the gale and charged towards Fletter. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Fletter wasn't slow either. He pulled his bow and sent 3 golden arrows at Wang Ting. The 3 golden arrows turned into a golden bird. It looked lifelike. Its eyes were sharp, and it spread its wings as it soared in the sky. A shrill screech came from the bird's mouth. Sound waves tossed and turned. Arrow conscious. Wang Ting's expression changed slightly. The Holy Knight from the Sagittarius Palace was indeed outstanding. He could gather his arrow conscious anytime and anywhere. This exceeded the power of a normal attack. After firing the 3 arrows, Fletter's face had gotten pale. But he continued to stare at Wang Ting and the golden bird intently. Boom. Wang Ting stared at the bird as it came closer. Then, he moved. Ancient God's body. 5-element Fis. Strength of Ultima. All his skills were activated simultaneously. It was the same ordinary-looking punch, but the skills hidden within were out of everyone's expectation. No matter how many attacks you have, I will destroy them with a punch. Fletter felt his heart beating like a drum. He had a bad feeling. He had seen that punch before. Edward was defeated by a similar normal-looking punch. This was his second time seeing it, yet he couldn't see through its secret. Boom. Fist power exploded. There were no earth-shaking scenes or astonishing images. The punch landed calmly and simply on the golden bird's head. At that moment, everything seemed to have paused. It was as if time had stopped. Then, the golden bird started cracking, inch by inch. Its entire body shattered into multiple golden dots of light as if it was struck by a powerful, overwhelming force. It flew back and soared past Fletter, the wind scattering the remaining dots of lights. Fletter stared at Wang Ting in bewilderment. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 642, Who Asked You to Be So Arrogant? Golden droplets sprinkled down the sky. Ferocious and invisible energy swept through the golden droplets and slammed right onto Fletter's body. Splurt. Fresh blood spurted out of Fletter's mouth. He was thrown backward from the impact. At the same time, clear cracking sounds came from his body. Boom. He flew back for more than 10 meters because of the violent force before crashing into the ground like a shooting star. The ground had to bear the rest of the force as a deep hole emerged on it. Splurt. Fletter vomited another mouthful of blood. Wang Ting straightened his arms slowly, which dangled beside his body. He looked down with a composed expression. Fletter's face was white as it had lost all its blood. He seemed dispirited and dejected. He couldn't accept this result. The attack that contained his most powerful conscious was destroyed by Wang Ting with a single punch. One punch. Just one punch. How is this possible? Fletter was in a daze. The result was too hard to accept. He was the Holy Knight of the Sagittarius Palace. He was famous for being the most powerful marksman, but his strongest shot was destroyed by one punch. This was a huge blow to his confidence. On the other side, Alif and Froze, who were in the poison web, were thunderstruck. They were at a loss for words after seeing the whole battle. Especially Alif. His expression was extremely ugly. At the moment, fear was dominant in his eyes. They lost. Even Fletter lost. None of the 7 Holy Knights was Wang Ting's match. He had defeated them together. How ironic was this? If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. As if confirming his thoughts, Wang Ting said indifferently, Holy Knights are nothing more than this. There was disdain in his voice. You, Edward, Bloflem, and Fletter hadn't lost their consciousness yet. Hearing his sarcastic words, they felt blood gushing into their heads. Humiliation. What did he think the Holy Knights were? How dare he humiliate them so blatantly? Wang Ting ignored their anger. He stepped on the air and walked towards Alif and Froze. Alif's expression changed instantly. What do you want? His gaze changed, and he stepped back continuously. Sizzle. In his panic, he accidentally touched the poison web. His skin got burned by the flame and was corroded by the poison. A sudden pang of indescribable pain invaded his whole body. Alif grunted in pain uncontrollably. You were so arrogant at the start. You were so high and mighty as if you could control everything and even called the Holy Knights over to catch me. What? Are you feeling scared now? Wang Ting snorted. Wang Ting, don't think that you can be impudent just because you defeated those Holy Knights. They are the weakest. The real formidable warriors haven't come out yet. The Holy Temple is not a place you can treat as your backyard. You will receive your punishment if you dare to create trouble here. Alif shouted angrily. Still acting tough. Wang Ting's expression turned cold. With a single step, he covered more than 10 meters, arriving directly in front of Alif. He looked at him mockingly. You are in my hands now. What should I do with you? I'm the sage of the Holy Temple. How dare you touch me? Alif was nervous. Cold sweat appeared on his forehead. Sage? What's that? Wang Ting snorted and took out his golden brick. Alif felt the corners of his eyes trembling when he saw this. He had seen some of the Holy Knights getting beaten into a pig's head. Would he follow in their footsteps? Wang Ting's nonchalant tone made him even more frustrated. He was the sage of the Holy Temple. He had a high status, higher than many others with only a few people above him. Yet Wang Ting was asking him what that was. How dare you look down on the Holy Temple? Alif was indignant. So much bullshit. Wang Ting shook his head. Alif was imprisoned by the poison web, so he had nowhere to hide. He could only watch Wang Ting smash his golden brick on his head. Wang Ting! Alif screamed in agony. He was slapped on his forehead, right in the middle. Bang, bang, bang. Wang Teng's hand moved as fast as lightning. He slammed his brick down brutally on the forehead without stopping. The dull thuds caused Frose's cheeks to twitch continuously. He was trembling with fear. Alif's head started swelling at a visible rate. He was bruised and swollen, looking tragic to the extreme. Wang Teng did have the guts to be ruthless. This fellow was so irritating. He acted all high and mighty at the start and treated him like a weakling that could be caught easily. He even wanted to kill him. Evil person. What right did he have to be a sage? TSK. Cries of pain escaped Alif's throat. His voice was bitter. Wang Ting, this is Mount Saint. The Holy Temple will not let you go. How brave. I respect you for being a real man. Wang Teng remained indifferent. He wasn't frightened by his threats and got even more brutal. He hammered his head again and again. I've been tolerating you for a long time. You keep acting all arrogant. Go on, continue your act. Bang, bang, bang. Continue your act. Why aren't you saying anything now? Bang, bang, bang. In just a few moments, Alif's head grew by one size. No traces of his refined and noble appearance could be found anymore. His eyes were only a tiny crack now. 2 lines of blood flowed down his nose, and his face was a mixture of green and red. He felt dizzy and muddled. His mind was in a whirl. However, Wang Teng still didn't think that this was enough. He grabbed Alif's arm and twisted it lightly, warping it into a braid. Crack. His arm bones broke with a crisp sound. Alif howled at the top of his lungs. Shuddered, he regained his consciousness. His mind was wide awake. His eyes were filled with fear. Devil. This fellow was a devil. How could he be so cruel? Froze had already shrunk into a corner. Even though his skin was being burned and corroded by the scorching poison web, he didn't dare to make a peep. He was afraid that Wang Ting would notice him. Bang, bang, bang. Wang Teng raised his brick and continued smashing Alif's head. Anger boiled on his face as he questioned the sage. How did I provoke you? Tell me, how did I provoke you? Why did you target me? How dare you try and catch me? Who gave you the right to do that? Why are you so arrogant? Why? Tell me. Wang Ting's shout stunned Alif. Others might think that he was the victim. But anyone with eyes could tell that he was the person who was bullied the worst. Alif's eyes were spinning. He started getting dizzy again. He couldn't hold on much longer. Wang Teng repeated his actions and twisted his other arm. Alif shuddered, waking up once again. Alif roared in pain. He felt so frustrated that he wanted to vomit blood. Why couldn't he faint? Why? He never imagined that he would find fainting to be a fortunate thing for him one day. Being awake was too painful for the current him. Bang, bang, bang. Stop hitting, Alif said weakly. He couldn't stand it anymore. There was only fear and regret left in his heart. He shouldn't have provoked this devil. Wang Teng wasn't human. He was too ruthless. At this moment, this sage from the Holy Temple finally experienced the evil of the world. Remaining conscious could be so painful. Chapter 643. After fighting the big one, the old one came. Stop hitting, Alif muttered weakly. His consciousness was slipping, and he couldn't hold on much longer. Wang Teng stopped abruptly when he heard Alif begging for mercy. The brick stopped an inch above his forehead. Aren't you very powerful? You can catch whoever you want to catch, right? Why are you admitting defeat now? This is all a misunderstanding. Alif cried in disgrace and sorrow. His voice was extremely weak. Is this really a misunderstanding? Wang Teng mocked. I killed 2 holy knights and injured 6 of them. Is that a misunderstanding too? Yes, it's all a misunderstanding. Alif gritted his teeth and nodded. He didn't dare to object at all. He was afraid of receiving more hits on his head if he offended Wang Teng again. He had developed psychological trauma towards the brick, and it couldn't be erased easily. He felt fearful. You heard him. This is all a misunderstanding. Wang Ting smiled and looked at the holy knights lying on the ground. The holy knights held on to each other and crawled up from the ground with difficulty. They looked up at the sky. When they heard what Wang Ting said, their faces turned green and white. So, they were beaten for nothing? They felt so exasperated that they wanted to vomit blood. Especially when they felt the throbbing pain on their heads, they trembled in anger. This fellow was brutal. He beat them up so badly, yet he still dared to say that this was all a misunderstanding. What the hell did he mean? The holy knights wanted to curse. You could have said this earlier. Wang Ting patted Alif's shoulder in satisfaction. Then, he added in a meaningful tone, we can't be too arrogant. Keeping a low profile like me is the basic rule of survival. If not, you will get beaten to death easily. Yes, yes. Alif nodded with tears in his eyes. He was cursing in his heart, though. Low profile? Are you low profile? You dared to kill the holy knights of Mount Saint and even beat up a sage. Yet, you said that you are low profile? Shameless. Despicable. Repulsive. But, he didn't dare to say these words out loud. At this moment, a sonic boom was heard from afar. Alif's eyes lit up. He looked in the direction of the peak. Someone had finally arrived. Wang Teng also turned in the direction of the sound. Multiple rays of light flew down from the peak and turned into a few figures with outstanding auras. These people were wearing the special clothes of the holy temple. You could recognize them at a single glance. Some of them were dressed similarly to Alif. They were also sages. All these people were surrounding a white-haired elder with a stern face. He seemed to be their leader. This person must have a special identity. Wang Ting sneered in his heart. After fighting the small figures, the big ones came. After fighting the big ones, the old one appeared. After reading the situation here, the expressions of the newcomers changed slightly. Goodness! They gasped in surprise. The holy knights looked miserable. Had it not been for their divine constellation armors, they would be unrecognizable. What inhumane torture did they undergo to end up like this? Demia, Yarrow, Edward, Blofeld, Fletter, Yarfel. The people called their names with uncertainty. The holy knights felt extremely embarrassed. They wanted to dig a hole and bury themselves inside. They had no face to greet these people. The holy knights had never suffered such humiliation. The others noticed their expressions and confirmed their guesses. It was them. How did you all end up like this? One of the people asked in disbelief. The holy knights felt a bundle of emotions, but they didn't know what to say. Were they supposed to tell them that they were beaten by the same person? How embarrassing would that be? The white-haired elder turned to look at the badly bruised and swollen Alif when he saw this scene. He opened his mouth and asked calmly, Alif, you do the talking. Great sage. Alif wanted to speak, but he didn't dare to say anything because Wang Teng was beside him. He could only look at the white-haired elder pitifully. Speak. The white-haired elder glanced at Wang Teng and shouted sternly. Wang Teng gave an ambiguous smile. Visit Ria Del. Me for extra chapters. Alif saw his reaction and felt even more fearful. Since he's asking, just say it. Why are you making me look like a monster? Am I that kind of person? Wang Teng said speechlessly. No reply. Alif, Edward, and the holy knights wanted to reply to him with a yes. This brat was shameless. Didn't he know what kind of person he was? The white-haired elder glanced at Wang Teng again after seeing everyone's reaction. His gaze turned cold. I didn't ask you to speak. Old man, my mouth is on my face. Why do you care if I speak? Who do you think you are? A god? Wang Teng replied nonchalantly. How dare you? How dare you talk to the great sage like this? Before the elder opened his mouth, the people around him shouted at him angrily. Their expressions changed. HMPH. Wang Teng snorted at them with a look of disdain. Young man, show some respect in your speech. Didn't the adults teach you to respect your elders? A sinister look appeared in the elder's eyes. My grandfather told me that I don't have to show respect to old people who take advantage of their seniority. Our leader of martial arts and the 3 great commanders also said that if an elder is shameless enough to attack a junior, they don't mind doing some exercises. Wang Teng smiled and said. He wasn't making these claims out of nothing. Before he left the country, they did speak to him. He didn't tell them earlier because he was afraid of the other party. He just wanted to talk back to him. The white-haired elder's expression finally changed. He didn't know who Wang Teng's grandfather was, but he for sure knew who the leader of martial arts and the 3 great commanders were. They were world-renowned figures. Even he had to bow to them when he saw them. This young man was speaking the truth. His words were worth contemplating. However, he kept talking about elders. He was obviously scolding him while pointing at the mulberry. He had never been humiliated by anyone because of his high status. Hence, he was furious. He looked as though a fly had flown into his mouth. You killed my holy knights and even hit people on Mount Saint. Even if the leader of martial arts was here, we are in the right. The elder took a deep breath and continued, I will teach you a lesson on behalf of the leader so that you know how to behave yourself. Take him down. He waved his hand and gave his order. Wang Teng sighed. Shaking his head, he said, why is there always someone who's opinionated, distorts the truth, and so shameless? Everyone was dumbfounded when they heard him abusing the great sage. This fellow was asking for death. Hatred swarmed in Alif's heart. He was elated. The more arrogant Wang Teng was, the more the great sage wouldn't let him go. Once he was caught, he would definitely take revenge. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 644, Goddess. The martial warriors that arrived with the white-haired elder got moving. They scattered and surrounded Wang Ting in the center. Edward and the others looked at the sky. They were curious. After all the fights in the past, how much energy did Wang Ting have remaining? Could he stop these people? Wang Ting glanced around him, his gaze chilly and icy. His patience was gone. Since these people were being unreasonable, he didn't mind creating a bigger scene. He would let them know what regret tasted like. If he didn't reply, they might think that he was easy to bully. The atmosphere was tense. The daggers were drawn and a huge battle was imminent. Stop. Right then, a shout came from afar. It was accompanied by a sonic boom, and multiple figures flew over from the peak at a frightening speed. They landed in front of everyone. Great Sage Fora, Your Highness. Alif, Edward, and the other holy knights were surprised when they saw the people who came. One of the newcomers was dressed like the white-haired elder. He also had white hair, and his face was covered with wrinkles. He gave off a domineering vibe that could only appear on someone who had been in a high position for a long time. There were multiple martial warriors beside him too. These people were dressed like Alif. They were all sages. However, what was different was, they were surrounding a young lady who was wearing a light black shawl over her face. This young lady's aura was exceptional. It was holy and majestic. With her eyes as deep as the universe, she looked at everyone. The martial warriors from the holy temple bent their backs to show their respect. It's her. Wang Teng was surprised when he saw the young lady. This was the young lady he met in the museum that night. Wang Teng guessed that her identity wasn't simple, but he didn't expect her to be the goddess of Mount Saint. This change of identity was quite big. The holy knights half kneeled on the ground and bowed respectfully, Your Highness. Edward, how did you end up like this? Great Sage Fora asked with a strange gaze. The holy knights felt frustrated. It was like sprinkling salt on their wounds. Why did everyone have to ask the same question when they saw them? If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. What a stab in his heart. Great Sage Fora glanced at Wang Ting involuntarily. He could guess what had happened. He shook his head and stopped probing. What's with that look? Wang Ting felt speechless. They had brought trouble to themselves. They deserved it. He wasn't to be blamed. Get up, Alaise, who was wearing a black shawl, said gently. Her lovely voice resounded in the mountain. At the same time, she waved her hand. Droplets of light rained down. When these droplets of light landed on the holy knights, the bruises on their faces started recovering at an astonishing speed. Even the lighter wounds were healing. Edward and the others touched their faces and noticed that they had recovered from the bruises. They were grateful. They bowed toward Alaise again and said, "Thank you, Your Highness." "What is this?" Wang Ting was shocked. They recovered. The wounds on the holy knights had healed. Even high-quality spiritual Dan wouldn't have such a fast recovery effect. Although the more serious injuries on their bodies didn't heal completely, this ability was already amazing. What were those droplets of light? Wang Ting could feel a different aura from those droplets. They were warm, bright, and profound. At this moment, he saw 2 attribute bubbles dropping from Alaise. Get it? Wang Ting's eyes lit up. He hurriedly picked the bubbles up. Light Force *15 Light Force *10 As the 2 attribute bubbles merged into his body, Wang Ting felt the addition of an extremely small force in his body. The feeling this force gave him was the same as the one he felt on Alaise. Light Force. Wang Ting was stunned. Then, happiness kicked in. This was a brand new force attribute. This force had never appeared before. Yet, it appeared on the goddess of Mount Saint, Alaise. Was this what made her different? While Wang Ting was immersed in joy and contemplation, Great Sage Fora suddenly spoke to the white-haired elder, "Great Sage Kipling, why aren't you bowing in the presence of Her Highness?" The white-hair elder's gaze flickered. He didn't refute and bowed instantly. "Your Highness. Please rise, Great Sage Kipling." Alaise's voice remained emotionless. "Thank you, Your Highness," Great Sage Kipling said. "Great Sage Kipling, why did you all create such a huge scene?" Great Sage Fora questioned. Great Sage Kipling looked at him but spoke to Alaise, "Your Highness, this impudent martial warrior from country Shia wreaked havoc in our Mount Saint and has tainted our reputation. I wanted to catch him first before bringing him to you." "He's my guest," Alaise said. "What? He's your guest?" Kipling looked as if he had just learned of this information. He pretended to be shocked and said, "But he killed Margus and Carl. How can someone as evil as him be your guest?" Wang Ting turned and glanced at him. What a wicked old man. He was speaking ill of him right in front of his eyes. What did he mean he was the evil one? The previous person who said this, Yarful, had already turned into a pig's head. Did this old fellow want to experience a similar thing? "I've already said that he's my guest," Alaise emphasized her words. "Your Highness, as the goddess of Mount Saint, you represent Mount Saint's glory and reputation. Are you going to pardon this criminal?" Kipling showed no signs of backing down. He opposed Alaise directly in a calm tone. With such a huge claim on her, Alaise frowned. "Great Sage Kipling, from what I know, this young man from country Shia didn't initiate the fight," Great Sage Fora said. "But he killed 2 holy knights. This is an undeniable truth." Kipling kept a straight face and remained focused on this issue. "Mr. Wang Ting is the goddess friend. The holy knights below should not have fought with him, whether it was their own intention or under someone's direction. If we lock him up, the reputation of Mount Saint will be destroyed. At that time, you will be the sinner," Great Sage Fora said indifferently. "Sinner? If I allow him to leave and disregard the humiliation we have received, I will be the true sinner," Great Sage Kipling replied. "Bring Arudis over. We need to know who is right and who is wrong. If someone created this mess because of his selfish desire, the Holy Temple will not show mercy." Great Sage Fora had noticed that the other party didn't want to let things go easily, so he changed his strategy. Chapter 645, Giving false accounts. When Great Sage Fora suggested a confrontation with Arudis, Great Sage Kipling's eyes lit up. He smiled and replied, "I have no objections." "Very good." Great Sage Fora looked at him intently before speaking to a person beside him. "Bring Arudis here." "Yes." The person received the order and left. After some time, Arudis came. At the same time, The other holy knights who hadn't appeared yet also came to the scene upon learning that the goddess was here. Your Highness. The holy knights kneeled on one knee and bowed in respect. Suang, Sharjah, you're here. Please rise. This time, there was a hint of intimacy in Alay's voice. A smile appeared at the edge of great sage Forah's lips too. He nodded at them. The holy knights stood up and stood around Alay's, protecting her in the center. They took a few steps back and appeared extremely respectful. Great sage Kipling's gaze turned sinister when he saw this scene. The holy knights that just arrived looked at Edward and the remaining holy knights. Their gaze shimmered, and a mocking smile appeared at the edge of their lips. Edward and the remaining holy knights had received treatment from Alay's, so their injuries were mostly healed. However, the internal injuries were still present. They looked weak and miserable. When they saw Suang and the others, they felt embarrassed. Wang Ting's interest was piqued when he saw Kipling and Alay's different teams. It looked like Mount Saint was not one big and close family. Arudis, tell me, why did you fight with the goddess guest? Great Sage Forah looked at the holy knight of the Taurus Palace and asked. Great Sage Forah, I just wanted to have a duel with him, Arudis said bitterly. He never expected his actions to cause this entire series of events. Some holy knights even lost their lives. Arudis glanced at Wang Ting uncontrollably. He was filled with regret and astonishment. This fellow killed Margus and Karl and even defeated Edward and the other holy knights. However, where did he get the balls to create trouble on Mount Saint? Wasn't he afraid of the holy temple's punishment? Are you speaking the truth? Great Sage Forah frowned. He probed further. Did anyone instigate you to do this? Arudis was stunned. He shook his head and replied, no one instigated me. A strange smile appeared at the edge of Great Sage Kipling's lips. He didn't incite Arudis. This was all an accident. He just made use of it. It was impossible for them to find any evidence of his interference with Arudis. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. Great Sage Forah exchanged glances with Alay's. Then, he turned to Wang Ting and asked, young friend, you're Wang Ting, right? Yes. Wang Ting nodded. He wanted to see how they would solve this issue. Can you answer my question? Great Sage Forah asked politely. Yes. Why did you kill Margus? He wanted to kill me, so I killed him. Wang Ting's tone was indifferent. Oh, Margus wanted to kill you? Of course. Why would I kill him for no reason? Am I a serial killer? Wang Ting replied angrily. What a joke. Margus had no grudges against you. Why would he want to kill you? Great Sage Kipling turned to look at Forah. You heard him. He killed Margus and showed no respect for his status. Are you still going to help him? Great Sage Forah frowned. This matter was a little tricky. Why don't you ask Froze? He knows clearly whether Margus wanted to kill me or not. Wang Ting smiled and said. He wasn't afraid of creating a scene. Despite being the main lead of this issue, he appeared nonchalant and indifferent. He didn't seem worried about his situation and was extremely calm. Froze, what do you know? Great Sage Forah's eyes lit up. He looked at Froze immediately. Froze wanted to remain invisible, but Wang Ting had called him out. He felt helpless. He looked at Kipling and then at Forah and Alay's. He didn't dare to provoke any of them. Under Kipling and Forah's stares, he felt pressured. Cold sweat started to appear on his forehead. Froze, speak without any worry. I'll ensure your safety. Great Sage Kipling glanced at him and said. Froze gritted his teeth. After Wang Ting defeated Arudis and Karl, he went to the Cancer Palace. Margus stopped him, and in turn, Wang Ting destroyed his death space. That was why he wanted to kill Wang Ting. I knew that this matter was going out of hand, so I hurriedly went back to the Holy Temple to seek reinforcements. Sage Alif came with me and saw Wang Ting killing Margus. He destroyed the legacy of the Cancer Palace. Everyone was astounded. They all had heard of the Cancer Palace's death space. Some of them had even experienced it before. It was extremely hard to deal with. Also, this was a legacy that had been passed down for many years. It was a space of its own and extremely precious. No wonder Margus wanted to kill Wang Ting when he destroyed it. He wanted to capture me using the death space, but his skills were inferior and I destroyed it. You can't blame me for that, Wang Ting said innocently. Everyone was speechless. What do you mean by it's not your fault? If we don't blame you, who do we blame? Also, why are you acting so innocent? You destroyed Margus' death space and killed him. Hez the innocent one. Honestly, if y'all hadn't stopped me, everything would have been fine. Everyone would have been at peace, Wang Ting said. Let's not talk about Margus. You killed Carl. How do you explain that? Kipling said. That's not my fault either. You have him to blame for that. Wang Ting pointed at Alif. Me? Alif's heart skipped a beat. He felt a little guilty and shouted, Your Highness, Great Sage Kipling, this young man is slandering me. I saw him killing someone, so I wanted to catch him and bring him to the Holy Temple. He didn't agree and even killed Carl in his resistance. You can't believe his words. Hez an evil man. Me? An evil man? Wang Ting sniggered. You didn't say that you were going to bring me to the Holy Temple. You used the Holy Temple to threaten me and wanted to punish me directly without finding out the truth. Are you saying that I can't resist and wash my neck for you? Alif, is he telling the truth? Great Sage Fora glared at him and asked with a stern expression. I'm innocent. I'm the sage of the Holy Temple and have always been fair and just. I'd never do such a tyrannous act, Alif shouted pitifully. Froze, Edward, and the others went speechless. They were shocked by Alif's shamelessness. Chapter 646. No way of backing down. I believe in Alif's character, Kipling opened his mouth and said. He was speaking up for Alif. Edward and the others were stunned before realizing the situation. If someone asked them what happened, they knew what to say. As expected, Fora questioned them next. Their reply was no different from Alif's. Wang Ting glanced at them and snorted. Alif was delighted. He looked at Wang Ting proudly. I have the backing. What can you do? Wang Ting was speechless when he saw this despicable man feeling superior. Old man, are you blind? He has good character. Kipling and Alif's face turned black. How dare you humiliate the great sage? Once Alif had someone supporting him, he became arrogant again. He shouted at Wang Ting, is your head getting itchy again? Wang Ting squinted. A dangerous glow appeared in his eyes. Alif immediately felt his head hurting again. He took 2 steps back uncontrollably. Kipling was disappointed. He had expected better from him. Coward, Hez just a martial warrior from country Shia. What's there to be afraid of? Fora, are you still going to cover up for him? Kipling looked at Fora and Alaise and continued calmly, Your Highness, this young man has killed 2 of Mount Saint's holy knights and caused great damage to the Cancer Palace. If we don't punish him, the members of the Holy Temple will be disheartened. As the guardian and protector of the Holy Temple, shouldn't Your Highness seek justice for us? His tone was calm, but his aura was overbearing and aggressive. He was forcing the goddess. He threw out a righteous cause and forced Alaise to punish Wang Ting, putting her in a difficult position. Both parties have their own version of things. We can't be certain of what happened. Great Sage Kipling, why are you putting so much pressure on Her Highness? Great Sage Fora's expression turned grim. He stared intently at Kipling. If we wrongly accuse Wang Ting, our relationship with country Shia will be strained. Will you bear the consequences? In that case, Kipling shouted with a strong sense of righteousness, TM willing to bear the consequences for Mount Saint's sake. His voice was loud, spreading out far and wide. All the martial warriors on Mount Saint heard him. Wang Ting had caused a huge commotion when he wreaked havoc in Mount Saint. Many people already knew what happened here and were waiting to see how the drama would play out. Many people felt respect towards Kipling upon seeing him stepping up. Some of them, who couldn't see beyond the surface, developed resentment against their goddess. Fora's expression changed, and he glanced at Alaise. At this point, he didn't have a better idea of what to do. Kipling took the risk and was willing to bear all the consequences to punish Wang Ting. His decision was resolute. He was doing this to earn a reputation. If the goddess sided with Wang Teng, the other members of the holy temple would be bitterly disappointed the same knife could cut the bread and fingers. This sentence was applicable in this situation. If the goddess lost the trust of the people on Mount Saint, she wouldn't be the goddess anymore. Alaise frowned. She was in a dilemma and couldn't make her decision. Kipling's eyes lit up. He waved his hand and said, "Take down this martial warrior from country Shia. Who dares?" An angry shout came from afar. Many figures were flying over at high speed. This time, they came from the small town below. A few moments later, the people arrived at the scene. Dan Taishen was among them. Not only that, Darwin and Valeria from Country Boar were present too. They landed behind Wang Ting and faced Kipling and his men. Darwin laughed and opened his mouth. How lively. Kipling frowned. Looking at Wang Ting's new supporters, frustration crept up his heart. "Are you all right?" Dan Taishen sized up Wang Ting and asked. "TM fine. They're the ones who are not all right." Wang Ting shook his head calmly. Dan Taishen and the others turned to look at Edward and the Holy Knights. Bewilderment appeared in their eyes. "Holy Knights? Did you beat them up? Did you kill someone?" Zhu Yushao whispered. Wang Teng glanced at his companions. He felt grateful. They were willing to come even at a time like this. This required much courage. "This is justifiable self-defense," he replied. Visit Ria Me for extra chapters. No reply. Dan Taishen, Zhu Yushao, and the others felt speechless when they heard this. You killed someone and label it as justifiable self-defense. Did you mean excessive self-defense? This fellow created trouble wherever he went. What on earth happened here? Dan Taishen asked through voice transmission. Wang Teng didn't hide the truth, recounting what happened using voice transmission. Dan Taishen was at a loss for words. She knew that she couldn't blame Wang Ting, but his specialization in creating trouble made her furious. She felt that troubles were attracted to Wang Ting. If he didn't create a scene, he couldn't answer to his amazing talent. "TL find you again when we're back." Dan Taishen glared at him furiously. Then, she turned to Kipling and said in a cold voice, "Who wanted to catch our martial warrior? Why can't I catch a murderer on Mount Saint?" Kipling mocked. "T have heard what happened. It's not our fault," Dan Taishen replied calmly. "Does your word count? The bodies of the two holy knights are still warm. You must give us an answer," Kipling replied angrily. "What a joke. You were the ones who invited Wang Ting up the mountain, but you stopped him intentionally too. You even wanted to kill him. However, your skills were too weak, so your men got killed by him. Now, you're asking us for an answer? TM already being very polite by not seeking an answer from you." Dan Taishen activated her sharp tongue skill and refuted without any mercy. The holy knights' faces turned black. They were too weak. This was the first time someone said that, but they couldn't refute it either. This was exasperating. "This is all your fault. You invited him and yet hurt him. In the future, who will dare to accept your invitation again?" Darwin sniggered. "This reminds me of a Chinese story." "Oh right, the Hongmen banquet." Kipling almost vomited blood. He had tried so hard to convict Wang Teng, but once these people came, they overturned his verdict and regarded this major accident as a minor one. He felt frustrated and furious when they talked about it so casually. Especially when Country Boar interfered too. Offending Country Shia was already a tough decision for him. He couldn't promise that he could bear the consequences if Country Boar was also added to the mix. To put it lightly, this was a fight for pride between the martial warriors. But on a larger scale, this was diplomacy. If the higher authorities in Country Shia wanted to support Wang Teng, this matter would be huge. However, he had already spoken. How could he take his words back in front of all the martial warriors on Mount Saint? For a moment, Great Sage Kipling found no way of backing down. His expression became hideous. "If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 647, Kipling's Confidence. Translator, Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations. On the other hand, Fora felt refreshed. Kipling had a strong influence in the Holy Temple and always opposed the goddess and him. It was rare to see him suffer. The sudden arrival of Wang Ting had caused ripples in this seemingly calm pool. Kipling wanted to fish in troubled waters, but he pulled up an ugly and hard rock instead and smashed his own feet. He burned his own fingers. Fora didn't believe that with the pressure from country Boer and country Shia, Kipling was still willing to take this risk and offend these two big countries. They weren't afraid of Dan Taishan or Darwin. They were afraid of the countries behind them. Your Highness, are you going to permit their actions? Kipling was furious. Ash tried to direct the blame to Alaise. Your Highness. Dan Taishan and the others looked at Alaise in surprise. This was their first time seeing the goddess of Mount Saint. They were extremely curious, but the black shawl covered Alaise's face, so they couldn't see the appearance of the noblest being on Mount Saint. However, her eyes left a deep impression on their hearts. They seemed like the universe itself, endless and profound, leaving them amazed. Great Sage Kipling, I've already said that Wang Ting is my guest. We were rude to him first, so we can't blame him, Alaise replied calmly. Dan Taishan and the others were shocked. They gave Wang Ting a strange gaze. The goddess was still siding with him even after what he had done. Was there something going on between them? Wait. They suddenly recalled something. On the night they arrived, Wang Ting said that he met a golden-haired beauty. Golden-haired. Dan Taishan and the others looked at Alaise's hair color and linked them up. Was this a coincidence? Or was that lady he met the goddess? Wang Ting's teammates could sense juicy gossip. Their gaze turned weirder and they kept shifting their eyes between Wang Ting and Alaise. Alaise sensed their gazes too. She frowned slightly and felt puzzled in her heart. Their gazes are so strange. What are they thinking? Wang Ting wasn't as naive as Alaise, so he immediately knew what they were thinking when he saw their looks. He felt speechless. Are they bored? What on earth are they thinking? Is this the time for gossip? Wang Ting coughed awkwardly and stopped their thoughts from going wild. But Your Highness, he killed 2 of our holy knights. Kipling emphasized once again. He didn't want to give up. TM saddened by Margus and Cole's death, but since they made a mistake, they must bear the consequences, Alaise said. Kipling's face turned green. You don't feel the pain because they're not under you, right? He felt hatred. The expression on his face kept changing, and he seemed to be struggling. Finally, the hesitation on his face disappeared. Lowering his head slightly, a peal of low laughter came from his mouth. Everyone frowned uncontrollably. Why is this old man laughing? It's so scary, Zhu Yushao whispered. Who knows? Maybe he went crazy because he couldn't stand the stimulation, Wang Tang replied. You're so sharp-tongued. He offended you, so you wish that he would just go crazy, Zhu Yushao said speechlessly. What does it have to do with me? He's the one laughing like a maniac. Shut up. At this moment, Kipling shouted at them angrily. He slowly raised his head. His eyes had become sinister, turning evil and pitch-black. He looked at Wang Teng eerily. Huh? Wang Teng's gaze flickered. He activated his spiritual sight and saw a thick dark force awakening in Kipling's body. Be careful. There's something strange about Kipling. He turned serious and immediately used voice transmission to warn Dan Taishan, Darwin, and the others. At this moment, Alaise and the others also noticed something amiss with Kipling. They stared at him. Great Sage Kipling, you. Alaise also sensed something. Her expression changed slightly. As expected of the goddess who carries the legacy of Mount Saint. Have you seen through it? Kipling sniggered. You accepted the invasion of the dark. Alaise said grimly. What? Great Sage Fora looked at his opponent in disbelief. You forced me. Kipling kept his smile and stared at Alaise and Fora without any expressions. His voice was icy. I came to Mount Saint when I was 10 years old and have spent countless years here. I exhausted my energy for Mount Visit Riadel. Me for extra chapters. Saint and served the gods assiduously. I gave my entire life to the Holy Temple, but what did I get in the end? Nothing. The martial arts era arrived and the holy temple's leader became the goddess. Generations of goddess stepped on the holy stage, assuming a higher position than me. Why? Why are you the ones who possess this stupid holy physique? What a joke. Besides having the holy physique, you're a good-for-nothing. You don't know how to govern the holy temple or develop and expand it. You're just a puppet. Kipling's voice was monotonous. It spread out gradually. There wasn't much emotion in his voice, as if he was just narrating an ordinary matter. Yet everyone else's expression still changed tremendously. This was blasphemy. Kipling said that the goddess was a good-for-nothing and called her a puppet. This was treason. Kipling, you're crazy. Do you know what you're saying? Fora yelled. TM not crazy. Mediocre people like you only know how to bow down to the goddess. You won't understand my great ambition. Kipling sneered. You're indeed crazy. You accepted the invasion of the dark force. Your consciousness is already tainted. You're not you anymore, Fora said grimly. Someone like you will never understand me. Kipling didn't take his words to heart. He shook his head and remained contemptuous. Suddenly, he opened his arms as if he was hugging the sky. Boom. The next instant, an extremely powerful aura erupted from his body, sweeping through the surroundings. TM me. No one can change that. The confident words spurted out of his mouth. The wind howled about the Cancer Palace, blowing against Kipling's white hair and gown. Everyone widened their eyes in astonishment. Kipling's white hair was turning black at a frightening speed. The wrinkles on his face were also disappearing and his skin gradually turned smooth. His muddy eyes glinted with a sinister black light. It was sharp and bright. He was turning younger. Everyone stared at this scene in disbelief. Within a few seconds, Kipling transformed from a white-haired old man into a 30-years-old middle-aged man. He even seemed a little handsome. His aura was exceptional. With his pitch-black and intense gaze, he would be lethally attractive to some rich young ladies. Everyone was at a loss for words. Oh my God, are you planning to be a gigolo? A bewildered voice broke the solemn atmosphere. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 648, Overthrow. Everyone. Kipling. He attracted everyone's attention with his words. It was, Wang Ting, why are you looking at me like that? Don't you think that this old man has the potential to be a gigolo? Wang Ting asked. Kipling was in high spirits, feeling that he had risen to another level. However, right now, he felt his anger rising at an uncontrollable speed. The veins on his forehead throbbed violently. Even with his temperament, he couldn't help but lose his composure. He wanted to kill Wang Ting. Everyone looked at Wang Ting strangely. This young man was full of surprises. To think that he was able to say this under such a tense atmosphere. When no one replied to him, Wang Ting answered himself. I wonder if your body became younger too. If your stamina is bad, being a gigolo will exhaust you. Rich ladies have a special taste. They know what they are doing. They can play for 3 days and 3 nights. Kipling's face turned black. What do you mean by rich ladies? What do you mean by play for 3 days and 3 nights? What kind of phrases are these? Everyone was speechless. They were filled with respect for Wang Ting. He managed to change the entire vibe of the situation all alone. This wasn't something an ordinary person could do. Great Sage Fora similarly had a strange expression on his face. There was compassion in his gaze as he looked at Kipling. For some reason, he felt bad for him. This Wang Ting's tongue was a little too sharp. Kipling was unlucky to have offended him. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. Enough. Kipling felt angrier when he sensed everyone's attention on him. His voice was stern. Such stubbornness even when you're about to die. Even if you're an outstanding talent, even if you're the genius of country Shia, you must die here today. He stared at Wang Ting maliciously as if he was looking at a dead person. What an arrogant tone. Wang Ting chuckled. Great Sage Kipling, You still have a chance to stop. In view of all your contributions to Mount Saint over the past decades, I will only lock you up in the holy temple and allow you to repent. I will not take your life, Alais said. Lock me up in the holy temple to repent. Ha ha ha. Kipling burst out laughing as if he had heard a joke. He said in disdain, Your Highness, you're still so naive. But you gave me this chance because you're naive. Unfortunately, my plan was spoiled by this young man. If not, I wouldn't have acted in such a hurry today. You were planning for this thing for a long time, Great Sage Fora said grimly. Rather than passing the holy temple to mediocre people like y'all, why don't I take over it? I can bring the holy temple to the top of the world and make all the countries bow down to us, Kipling said. He didn't plan to waste any more time. He bellowed loudly, the ones that are willing to follow me, please step out. Boom, boom, boom. After he finished speaking, multiple dark forces exploded. They were all extremely strong. Some of these dark forces came from the holy knights who had attacked Wang Teng before. Their changes were extremely eerie. The dark force surged out of their bodies and intertwined around them, creating black patterns on their skin. Even the divine constellation armors on their bodies seemed to have been infected. They turned from gold to black. You Great Sage Fora and the other holy knights protecting Alais were shocked. They looked at them in disbelief. At the same time, numerous figures flew over from all directions. Within a short moment, countless figures had appeared on the ground. They stood on huge rocks or jumped on the 12 zodiac palaces. Some of them just stood in the air and blocked all paths of escape. Fora was flabbergasted and appalled. He didn't expect Kipling to be able to draw so many people over to his side. They were willing to follow him and chose treason. How was that possible? Wasn't they supposed to follow Her Highness? She was the representation of the gods. She was a god walking on earth. Where did they get their guts from? Ha ha ha, do you see this? Kipling laughed. I'm not the only one who thinks this, Wav. The holy temple needs someone ambitious leading it, not a bystander who lives on Mount Saint in seclusion. This isn't the right time to enter the world, Alais shook her head calmly. Even in this situation, her expression didn't change. Mph, stop being mysterious. When is the right time? Kipling snorted. Soon. All words and no action. Kipling shook his head. He didn't want to talk to her anymore. He ordered, everyone, catch the goddess and kill the martial warriors from Country Boar and Country Shia. Any member of Mount Saint who decides to follow me will be spared. Yes, the martial warriors around him shouted in unison. Boom, boom, boom. Many figures shot into the sky. Force erupted as they flew down. Your Highness, please leave quickly. Shaja, Suang, protect Her Highness. Great Sage Fora's expression turned grim. He blocked in front of Alais. Great Sage Fora, I can't stay behind everyone at a time like this. Alais pushed her protectors away and walked in front of Fora. She stared at Kipling. Your Highness, are you planning to fight with me? Kipling laughed. I will catch you personally, Alais said. Catch me? Do you have the ability to do that? Kipling scoffed. Alais didn't reply to him. Instead, a holy and divine aura rose from her body. At the same time, in the holy temple at the peak of the mountain, a golden ray shot out from the goddess status deep inside the temple and soared into the sky before connecting with Alais. Boom! The bright ray of light flew over from afar and merged into Alais' body. The power of her aura climbed continuously. She broke through the doors of the general stage and climbed from the 9-star soldier level to 10-star, 11-star. All the way to the 13-star high-tier general stage. The legacy of the Holy Temple. Kipling turned serious. He could sense a tinge of fear from Alais. Some distance away, Wang Teng and his companions also noticed the situation on that side. They were astounded. Mount Saint was indeed mysterious. They were able to push a person's stage forcefully from the 9-star soldier level to the 13-star high-tier general stage. This method was heaven-defying. Kill the martial warriors from Mount Saint rushed to the front. Their shouts were deafening as they charged towards Wang Teng and his companions. Wang Teng exchanged glances with his teammates. The force in their bodies surged out, and they started fighting with the martial warriors of Mount Saint, each executing their battle techniques. Wang Ting, look at what you did. You've turned a simple exchange event into an all-out battle, Dan Taixian shouted as she fought with the enemies. How is it my fault? Kipling already had an ambitious and cruel plan. I just happened to come at the wrong time. Wang Ting felt wronged. It wasn't his fault. Wang Ting at this moment, a loud yell rang through the air. A few figures darted over. They were the Holy Knights. Their injuries had recovered completely, and their abilities rose by a huge level. They were extremely confident and wanted to take revenge on Wang Ting. Chapter 649, Let me fulfill your wishes. Multiple holy knights shot into the sky and charged towards Wang Ting. Dan Taixian's expression changed slightly. Everyone knew how powerful the holy knights of Mount Saint were. Even Dan Taixian didn't dare to underestimate them. They were on their guards as they faced these formidable opponents, clutching their weapons tightly and preparing for a huge battle. Darwin, Valeria, and a few other martial warriors from Country Boar stood beside them. They took out their weapons with a serious expression. Haha, I've long heard of the power of the Holy Knights and their mysterious battle techniques. However, I've never seen them. This is a good chance for me to experience it. Darwin laughed. I'm sorry for dragging you into this, Dan Taixian said. No problem. If we hadn't followed you, we wouldn't have witnessed such a good show, Darwin replied with a smile. Wang Ting, after this match, you will have to treat me to a good meal, Valeria shouted at Wang Ting suddenly. No reply. Everyone was speechless. Why are you still thinking about food at a time like this? This Valeria was a fearless person too. Wang Ting was stunned for a moment. Then, he smiled and replied, no problem. You can choose any food you want. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. Boom. Talk about it after you escape from Mount Saint. The Holy Knights had arrived. They threw their forces violently at the people in front. Edward was wearing black armor with a devilish aura around him. The bright and handsome Edward from before was gone. He rushed towards Wang Ting, unwilling to accept his one-punch defeat. Lightning Lion Fist. A purple-black outline of a lion appeared above him. Edward's devilish aura was raging everywhere. A malicious glow appeared in his eyes as he looked down at Wang Ting. Roar. With an angry roar, the purple-black devil lion followed Edward's fist and leaped down. At the same time, a chill came from behind him. It covered the entire space as if trying to freeze everything in its path. Even the air seemed to have turned into ice crystals. Snowflakes appeared and floated down the air. The snowflakes weren't white. They were pitch black. They had been stained with dark force and carried dark attributes on them. There seemed to be emotions hidden in the back snowflakes. Evil, chaotic, violent. Absolute zero. Another icy voice resounded. It was Yafel from the Aquarius Palace. She got beaten up badly by Wang Ting and felt extremely humiliated. Her hatred towards Wang Ting was on par with Edward's. She didn't hold back in her attack. As her voice landed, a pitch-black outline of a bottle appeared above her head. Dark force poured out of the bottle, forming a black lake of ice. It plummeted down at Wang Ting like a waterfall. Everything in the ice lake's path was frozen. The bone-chilling coldness caused the martial warriors to shudder. Die. Blofeld smiled. Poison and dark forces swarmed out of his body, merging together and soaring into the sky. Blood-red roses. Crimson flower petals floated down. There were black patterns covering the petals, making them strange and evil. Blofeld lifted his finger, and the petals started spinning at high speed. They formed a crimson-black whirlpool, eerie and frightening to the extreme. It was much more powerful than his earlier attack. The poison gas floating around it was enough to corrode the air. Hissing sounds were heard constantly. Blood moon thorns. The Holy Knight of the Scorpio Palace, Demia, executed his ultimate move too. Rays of crimson lights shot out, cutting through the air at the speed of lightning. They seemed to have pierced countless holes in the sky. Holy Sword Slash. Yarrow from the Capricorn Palace placed his palms together and raised them above his head. A black sword glow a few hundred meters long shot into the sky. He swung it down. Some distance away, Fletter had already taken out his longbow, which was covered with black patterns. His gaze was cold. A pitch-black arrow formed on the bow. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. His shooting speed was extremely fast. His hands turned into lingering shadows as pitch-black arrows shot out continuously. They seemed to be released at the same time. Sonic booms resounded in the sky. Some weaker martial warriors got affected by the impact and started bleeding from their noses. All 6 holy knights released their ultimate moves at once. They ignored the others and only focused on Wang Teng. All the attacks were directed at him. Be careful. Darwin, Dan Taixian, and the others were flabbergasted. These frightening attacks were all targeted at one person. Even a high-tier general stage martial warrior wouldn't be able to handle such an overwhelming onslaught. These 6 holy knights wanted to kill Wang Teng once and for all. What grudges did they have? They didn't understand. On the other side, Kipling and Alaise, who were fighting, also noticed the situation here. Alaise frowned uncontrollably. It looks like your friend is going to die. Kipling placed his hands behind his back and sneered. He won't die. Alaise's eyes shimmered. It was hard to tell what she was thinking. The holy knights have become more powerful after receiving the purification of the dark force. Do you think he has a chance of survival under the combined attacks of all 6 of them? Kipling scoffed. We will know about that soon enough, Alaise replied calmly. I'm extremely disappointed that those holy knights accepted your invitation and became slaves of the dark. Dark and light forces are just a kind of power. I don't care what methods I use as long as I can become strong. Kipling smirked. But you can't control the power of darkness. Alaise shook her head. This sentence seemed to have stabbed Kipling's heart. He snorted and turned serious. After I catch you and control Mount Saint, PLL show you how I control this power. Now, you can witness the holy knights killing Wang Teng. At this moment, even with all the powerful attacks shooting at him from all corners, Wang Teng remained calm. He didn't show any signs of fear or astonishment. Since you want death, let me fulfill your wishes. His words came out of his mouth in a calm tone and echoed in the mountain. The holy knights were furious. Such stubbornness even before death. The holy knights released their force to maximum and attacked Wang Teng ferociously. Die! Angry voices roared, bringing along intense killing intent. They could only pacify their anger and the humiliation they received after killing Wang Teng. Ancient God's body. Gold light shimmered brightly in Wang Teng's eyes as he bellowed in his heart. He poured a large number of blank attributes on the Ancient God's body attribute. In an instant, his physical body started changing. Mysterious energy flowed into his limbs and cleansed his entire body. He was undergoing a transformation. An occult golden rune appeared on his forehead. It stretched out and slowly formed the outline of a second rune. Chapter 650. Look, I dare. The appearance of the rune seemed slow, but it happened within a split second. In an instant, the second rune was formed. This stroke was short but firm. It made the rune on Wang Teng's forehead even more mysterious. It was hard to imagine the difference 2 strokes could make. The enhanced rune on his forehead was now even more magical. Boom! An explosion was heard in Wang Teng's body. It sounded like the eruption of the universe, the creation of the world itself. Different waves of energy swarmed through his body, allowing him to undergo astonishing changes in an instant. He clenched his fist and felt the restless and terrifying power waiting to be released in his body. Wang Teng smirked. Then, he raised his head slowly. The holy knights were less than 3 meters away from him and the frightening attacks were just inches away. His black hair danced wildly in the gale. Sharp gusts of wind brushed past his cheeks like small blades. Unfortunately, no matter how strong the wind was, it couldn't harm his skin. Initial signs of the power of the ancient god's body were already visible from this. For some reason, when the holy knights saw the smirk at the edge of Wang Teng's lips, their hearts dropped. Wang Teng raised his fist and punched the air in front of him nonchalantly. Boom! At that moment, All sounds seemed to have disappeared. Everything paused, and that lone, casual punch overshadowed everything. Then came a thunderous roar. Sound waves originating from the punch and circles of impact waves swept over the mountain. The 6 holy knights froze for an instant when they came in touch with the impact waves. Boom! The purple-black outline of the lightning lion howled in agony and shattered into numerous bolts of lightning, wreaking havoc in the sky. Edward was appalled and in disbelief. He had no idea what was happening. The crimson-red petal whirlpool stopped spinning abruptly after the forceful invasion of the formidable power. It swelled like a cancerous mass before exploding. The ice force started cracking too, unable to bear the energy from the punch. The lake cracked and collapsed in the end. The huge black light glow got stuck in the air less than 3 meters above Wang Teng's forehead. It couldn't move further down. Suddenly, cracks appeared on the light glow. They spread until they covered the entire body of the sword. Boom! Along with a loud explosion, the sword glow disintegrated into numerous light fragments and dispersed. At the same time, rays of dark red lights and countless light arrows froze in front of Wang Teng. They couldn't get a single inch closer. Amidst the ongoing explosions, all the attacks became non-existent. That one punch had destroyed everything in its path. Impossible. The holy knights were flabbergasted. They stared at Wang Ting in bewilderment. Boom! Suddenly, the residual impact of the fist surged out and slammed violently onto them. The frightening energy crashed into their bodies like speeding trucks. Splurt! 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 The holy knights started vomiting blood. The sound of crisp cracks from their bodies was like a pleasant symphony for their foes. They turned into shooting stars and smashed onto the ground. The ground split apart. Broken rocks flew everywhere, and a few deep holes were formed. The 6 holy knights lay in the holes, one person in one hole, horizontally. Silence. Dead silence. The atmosphere had turned eerily silent. Everyone stared at this scene with their mouths agape. There was disbelief flashing in their eyes. Dan Taixian and the others were anxious and furious when they saw the multiple attacks directed at Wang Teng, but right now, they were only left with astonishment. Everything happened too quickly. They had no time to reinforce him. They thought that Wang Teng would be in trouble, but the result was out of their wildest imaginations. Wang Teng had defeated 6 holy knights with one punch. What were they even doing here? Dan Taixian and the others felt a little redundant. They were here as extras, right? At first, Kipling was smiling confidently as if he had everything under control. However, the sudden reversal caught him off guard. Wang Ting had messed up his plans again. He defeated the holy knights who had accepted dark force with a single punch. What kind of monster was he? He wasn't so strong a moment ago. How did he suddenly gain so much strength? This didn't make sense. Visit Ria Del. Me for extra chapters. Even Alaise, who was extremely confident in Wang Teng, was shocked. She didn't expect him to release such a domineering and indomitable power. Great Sage Fora, Suang, Sharja, and the other holy knights on Alai's side were in a similar state as others. They looked at the young man as if he were a devil. At the same time, they felt extremely fortunate. They felt lucky that they were on Alai's side. Hence, they didn't need to be this devil's opponent. Alif hid some distance away. He was shivering in fear. Why was this young man so powerful? He wasn't even 20, yet he already possessed such extraordinary abilities. This was unbelievable. He was like a bug. He looked at Wang Ting in panic and started retreating again. He wanted to be as far away from Wang Teng as possible. Kipling, your holy knights have been defeated. Alai's voice floated in the air. Surprisingly, there was a hint of emotion in her tone. She seemed to be gloating in Kipling's misfortune. The edge of Kipling's lips trembled. He was roaring in his heart, but on the surface, he kept a stern face and snorted. A bunch of useless idiots. The holy knights heard his comment when they climbed out from the deep holes. They felt depressed and forlorn. They had lost to Wang Teng again. This time, it was a complete defeat. This was a huge stimulation for them. So what if you have accepted the invasion of the Dark Force? You still can't receive my punch. Wang Teng looked down at them and said indifferently. You. The holy knights were furious. Anger boiled in their hearts, and they vomited blood again. Even Kipling's expression turned ugly. Wang Teng's words were the greatest taunt to them. The power of the dark, which they viewed as their pride, was nothing in front of a single punch from him. How sarcastic. There's nothing more to say. It's time to send you to your deaths. Wang Teng's voice sounded once again. But this time, the holy knight's expressions changed tremendously. Fear and astonishment filled their eyes as they climbed up hastily and tried to escape. Wang Ting, you dare! Kipling shouted indignantly. Wang Ting ignored him. He raised his fist and hurled it down. One punch. Another punch. It smashed onto the ground like a pillar supporting the sky. No. The holy knights screamed in fear. I don't want to die. Yarful shrieked. She was scared and unwilling. Boom. A huge explosion drowned their agonized cries. The ground trembled violently, and a deep trench more than 10 meters wide appeared in everyone's vision. The 6 holy knights were all pressed against the ground. Their bones were deformed, and blood flowed down their eyes, noses, mouths, and ears. They were very much dead. Look, I dare. Wang Ting turned and smiled at Kipling. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 651, Mo Bing, Goddess Scepter. The muscles on Kipling's face trembled violently without his control. His face was as black as the bottom of a pot as he stared at Wang Teng eerily. He had never been so angry at a person. Wang Teng was the first one. The expressions of great sage Fora and the other holy knights were strange. They felt that this young man from country Xia was revengeful and stubborn. He had managed to infuriate Kipling to this stage. At the same time, they were astounded. Looking at the huge trench on the ground the lifeless holy knights, they sighed at his ruthlessness but were amazed at this strength. This young man was terrifying. Not only was he powerful, but he was also narrow-minded. Who would dare to provoke him in the future? If anyone wanted to become his enemy, they needed to see if they could withstand his punch first. The punch was a standard. Everyone regained their senses. They stared dumbfounded at the trench below them and felt a chill shooting down their spines. Their heads turned numb. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Everyone took a few steps back as if Wang Ting was some terrifying monster. The mutiny had just started, but many people were already starting to regret it. One person was enough to kill the most powerful holy knights under Great Sage Kipling's wing. How were they supposed to continue fighting? Did they have any chance of winning? Many traitors became suspicious. They were marching aggressively, thinking that success was within their grasp after accepting the power of the dark. But a few seconds later, they suffered a huge blow. This felt constipated. If someone frightened you during the process, you would never be able to get it out again. Never. Alaise and Great Sage Fora were dumbstruck. No one would ever expect such a comical scene to appear during a rebellion that endangered the entire Mount Saint. Kipling's expression turned uglier. He didn't think that the nobody who he thought he could pinch with his fingers was actually a terrifying monster who managed to cut off his left and right arms. Damn it. Kipling cursed uncontrollably. He was furious. Underestimated you. He stared viciously at Wang Teng and said in an emotionless voice. Thank you for your compliment. The thick vein on Kipling's forehead throbbed furiously. Why are you thanking me? Am I complimenting you? Huh? Am I complimenting you? What the hell are you thinking? If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. This simple reply almost caused Kipling to lose control of himself. He nearly exploded in anger. He felt that Wang Teng was his archenemy. He could anger him to death with a single reply. Dan Taixian and the others were speechless, especially Zhu Yushao, Mu Jigua, and the other students. They looked at Wang Teng's back in bewilderment. This fellow was amazing. He could refute anyone. He even dared to argue with the great sage of Mount Saint and almost angered him to death. An ordinary person wouldn't even be able to open his mouth. Kipling took a deep breath to control his emotions. He said coldly, "Don't be arrogant. I'll take care of you after I kill the goddess. Alaise, he says that he will kill me after you." "I'm so scared," Wang Ting shouted at Alaise. He even pretended to shiver in fear like a child getting bullied. Alaise, Kipling, Fora, Dan Taixian, everyone, the whole crowd was speechless. They looked at Wang Ting as if he were a weirdo. "Scared? Do you think we will believe that you're scared?" Kipling was at his limit. He panted heavily, and his blood boiled. His blood pressure was shooting through the roof. He decided not to speak anymore. He would kill them first. Boom. An extremely thick dark force surged out of Kipling's body. It formed wisps of black smoke and circled around him. Black patterns emerged on his face, making him look evil and hideous. A black battle sword also appeared in his hand. He pointed it at Alaise. There were complicated runes carved on the entire body of the sword, including the hilt, and it gave off a forbidding vibe. There even seemed to be cries and wails coming from it. They echoed in the air, affecting everyone's mind. "Mo Bing." Alaise's expression changed. "You took the weapon subdued by Mount Saint without permissio. Is a waste to let it collect dust under Mount Saint. Why not let me use it instead?" Kipling's gaze was evil and his smile unruly. "Mo Bing." Wang Ting sized up the sword. Somehow, he thought of the Mo Q he had snatched from the Eight Arms Devil General. In terms of looks, this Mo Bing was better than his Mo Q. Moreover, he could sense something strange about this Mo Bing. It had something an ordinary weapon didn't have. However, he couldn't pinpoint what it was. Boom. At this moment, Kipling stepped on the ground and disappeared on the spot with a loud explosion. Alaise turned serious and took out her weapon. It was a scepter that was as tall as a human. The scepter gave off a glaring glow the moment it appeared. Alaise pushed it forward. Boom. The next instant, the scepter collided with a pitch-black sword. Kipling reappeared in everyone's vision. The goddess scepter. His gaze shimmered, and he laughed hysterically. "So what? You can only release 1/5 of its power. Is enough to deal with you." Alaise remained calm. She wasn't afraid. Kipling's expression turned cold. A frightening black sword glow shot out from his sword and slashed towards Alaise. The black sword was extremely powerful. It cut through the air, bringing along eerie cries and wails as it soared through the sky. It was a terrifying scene. However, Alaise, who was bathed in golden light, wasn't affected. She held her scepter and stood there like a real goddess. Gold light sprinkled down and crashed into the black sword glow. Chapter 652. It feels amazing to become stronger. Some distance away, the black and white lights kept colliding and releasing loud explosions. The dazzling light was enough to light up the entire sky. The other martial warriors stopped fighting and retreated to two sides in unplanned unison. They watched the battle in the sky. Ever since the 6 holy knights got killed by Wang Ting's punch, both sides were at a strange equilibrium. Whether Kipling could defeat the goddess would tip the scales to one side. Kipling knew this too, so he released all his force as he fought with Alaise. Wang Ting felt bored. While watching their battle, he picked up the attribute bubbles around them. Light Force *135 Light Force *148 Light Force *185 Dark Force *150 Dark Force *200 Dark Force *115 Wang Ting smiled in joy when he saw his dark and light forces rising quickly on his attributes panel. He just obtained the Light Force, so it was still at the 1-star soldier level. However, the combat prowess of a high-tier general stage martial warrior was extraordinary. Hence, the attribute bubbles they dropped were sizable too. Within a few seconds, Wang Ting's light force stage rose exponentially. The same went for his dark force. Kipling was a high-tier general stage martial warrior who was entirely plagued with dark force. Thus, when he was fighting, dark force oozed out of him like a spring. Wang Ting happily enjoyed the fruits of their labor. Many dark force attributes also fell from the 6 holy knights he had killed. The two sources allowed Wang Ting's dark force to cross the hurdle and enter the 11-star low-tier general stage. Dark force, 260-20,000, 11-star, dark force tossed and turned in his body before gradually calming down. Sensing the difference in his body, Wang Teng was elated. It felt amazing to become stronger. His smile became brighter when he glanced at his attributes panel. The 6 holy knights had dropped many good attributes. Not only did they possess dark force, but they also had their own force attributes. Edward had lightning force, Blofeld and Demir had poison force, and Yarfel had ice force. These were all uncommon mutated attributes. These forces were lagging at the start, but they had all caught up now. Lightning force, 74-50-10,000, 10-star, his lightning force rose from a few hundred to a few thousand points. This was a great increase. Ice force, 32-10-10,000, 10-star, his ice force used to be at the 9-star level, but it had entered the 10-star brigadier general stage now. He had achieved a qualitative change. Poison force, 2-10-10,000, 10-star, since he had killed 2 holy knights who possessed poison force, the rise in his poison force was the most prominent. He climbed multiple levels and successfully entered the 10-star brigadier general stage. Although still a little behind the other forces, the distance was shortened considerably. The common 5 elements forces had seen some improvements too. Killing the holy knights meant that he could collect all their attributes once and for all. Hence, he received a huge number of attribute bubbles, and his ability skyrocketed. Metal force, 86-50-20,000, 11-star, wood force, 29-60-20,000, 11-star, water force, 27-70-20,000, 11-star, fire force, 71-70-10,000, 10-star, earth force, 650-20,000, 11-star. Except for his fire force, the other 4 elements had reached the 11-star low-tier general stage. Wang Teng didn't expect his fire force, one of his first forces, to be the one at the end now. But it was understandable. Without any holy knights with fire force, how could he collect more attributes? He looked at the remaining holy knights. There was a fire element martial warrior among them, but they weren't his enemies, so he couldn't kill him. What a pity. Wang Teng found it regretful. He felt that he lost a few billion. The holy knights in the distance suddenly shivered. By the time they glanced around them, Wang Ting had already retracted his gaze, so they didn't discover anything. They exchanged glances with one another and felt puzzled. Besides force attributes, Wang Ting also received talent attributes. Ultimate Stage Ice Talent * 320 Ultimate Stage Metal Talent * 280 Ultimate Stage Poison Talent * 560 Ultimate Stage Earth Talent * 210 Ultimate Stage Lightning Talent * 330 Ultimate Stage Arrow Talent * 270 Visit Riadel. Me for extra chapters. Ultimate Stage Sword Talent * 347 Ultimate Stage Talents in total. What a huge gain. Any Ultimate Stage talent was enough to make a martial warrior stand out from his peers, yet Wang Ting had all of them. This was unbelievable. These Ultimate Stage talents were extremely useful for Wang Teng. Only the Ultimate Stage Poison talent was overshadowed by the Demon Lotus Poison body, which, as a special physique, had higher potential. The Ultimate Stage Ice talent merged with the Ice Cocoon physique and increased the potential of this physique. Ice Cocoon physique, 348 5000. Next were the scriptures and battle techniques. Wang Teng had seen many high-rank scriptures and battle techniques, but even he was astounded when he counted his spoils of war. Crimson Roses, Skyrank, *1 Blood Red Venom, Skyrank, *1 Lightning Lion Fist, Skyrank, *1 Lightning Strike Scripture, Skyrank, *1 Absolute Zero, Skyrank, *. Holy Frost Scripture, Skyrank, *1 Blood Moon Thorns, Skyrank, *1 Holy Sword Slash, Skyrank, *1 Gold Ingot Scripture, Skyrank, *1 Aurora Holy Arrow *1. The list of Skyrank scriptures and battle techniques dazzled his eyes. He had to admit that the foundation of Mount Saint was extremely strong. These skills were the legacy of the Holy Knights, but Wang Teng got hold of them easily and kept them in his pocket. If the Holy Knights knew this, They might rise from the dead in anger and duel with Wang Teng again. Now have offensive attacks for all my attributes. Wang Ting touched his chin in deep thought. Adding the space attribute bubbles and space fragments he had received from Margus, he had struck the lottery. He had obtained offensive skills for all his attributes. Wang Ting felt that he had walked further on the path of becoming an all-round martial warrior. This wasn't good. He was becoming more and more heaven-defying. What if he got struck by lightning? Wang Teng looked up at the sky, finding it more of a possibility as his awesome talents bedazzled even himself. Geniuses were always envied. Heaven might strike him to death because it couldn't stand him anymore. Sigh. While Wang Ting was letting his imagination run wild, he heard a sudden explosion. The black and white ball of lights finally separated. Ha ha ha, goddess, you've lost. A peal of delighted and savage laughter sounded in everyone's ears. It was from Kipling. Alaise held her scepter as she stood in the sky. The light force around her was blinking crazily. She seemed a little weak. Has she hit her limits? Wang Teng glanced at them and squinted. He thought that Alaise had a big chance of winning, but Kipling was a level higher than her. It looked like there was a limit to the amount of power Alaise could receive if you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 653, Let me kill this talent from country Shia today. Your Highness. Great Sage Fora and the other holy knights exclaimed in worry. The martial warriors from Mount Saint were astounded too. They stared at Kipling in disbelief. No one expected him to defeat the goddess. Things just got worse. Dan Taixian whispered, her gaze flickering. Zhu Yushao, Mu Jigua, and the others turned serious too. They were ready for any sudden changes. Darwin and Valeria glanced at each other and clutched their weapons. Their gazes turned vicious. Worst case, they would have to fight for their lives. I think we should run away, Dan Taixian suddenly said with a strict face. Run away? The teammates turned and glanced at Dan Taixian in bewilderment. They were stunned. They even suspected their hearing. Did they hear wrong? What? Is there a problem? Dan Taixian asked. Aren't we going all out? Zhu Yushao asked cautiously. Do we have to? Even the goddess Isnt Kipling's match. He's so powerful that he might have reached the peak of perfection. He can kill us with a hook of his fingers, Dan Taixian snapped back. Although she was exaggerating a little, this was the truth. Even if they attacked together, they couldn't beat Kipling. Zhu Yushao and the others looked at Dan Taixian as if they were meeting her for the first time. They didn't think that an arrogant person like her could say this. So we're running away? Zhu Yushao asked with a strange gaze. Run. Mu Jigua, Chu Fei, and the others nodded firmly. They had seen Kipling's combat prowess firsthand and knew that they were far from being his match. If they stayed here, they would just be waiting for death. They weren't that stupid. Do you think Wang Ting can stop him? Zhu Yushao was unwilling to give up. She hesitated before asking everyone in a soft voice. The team was stunned. They immediately glanced at Wang Teng curiously. They didn't know what his true ability was, but he could solo 6 holy knights. This was something they couldn't do. Could he fight with Kipling? Alaise's face was pale. She tried to control her injury, but blood still dripped down the edge of her mouth. Your Highness. Great Sage Fora and the others shouted in worry. They wanted to go forward and help her. Don't come over. Alaise raised her hand and stopped them. Great Sage Fora and the Holy Knights stopped in their tracks. They hesitated. Your Highness, TM fine. Alaise shook her head. She stared intently at Kipling opposite her. I didn't think you could cultivate the dark force to this stage. You hid well. Haha, if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have fought with you. Kipling's black hair scattered down his shoulders. He said in an evil tone, stop struggling. Dark force has invaded your body. If you use your light force again, you will receive a backlash and ruin your foundation. The moment he finished speaking, Alaise, who wanted to use her light force to suppress the violent dark force in her body, vomited blood. Her face tuned whiter. If you don't believe me, You can continue trying, Kipling continued in disdain. He soared past Alays and rushed towards Wang Ting. I'll take care of our internal conflict after getting rid of the outsiders. Stop right there. Alays' expression changed. She had witnessed Kipling's strength herself, so she knew how powerful he was. If he attacked Wang Ting and his companions, they might not be able to resist. She knew that Wang Ting was powerful, but Kipling wasn't weak either. Even she wasn't his match after using her divine power. How could Wang Ting defeat him? Kipling ignored Alays' shouts and strode towards Wang Ting. There was killing intent in his eyes. He couldn't wait any longer. Wang Ting had provoked him so many times. If he didn't kill him, he wouldn't be able to sleep soundly. Dan Taixian and the others also noticed Kipling's intention. They were shocked. Oh no, he's coming for us. Chu Fei and Yang Bo panicked. They glanced at Dan Taixian. Once she gave the order, they would run away. Can you grow some balls? What's so frightening about dying? Zhu Yuxiao was also scared, but she commented uncontrollably when she saw their reaction. Young miss, why are you making it sound so simple? That is a top-tier general stage martial warrior. We can't do anything in front of him, Chu Fei said speechlessly. They weren't cowards, but they were nobodies in front of Kipling. There was no chance of stopping him. Wang Ting stood still and looked at Kipling as he walked over. There was no change in his expression. Visit Ria Del. Me for extra chapters. Aren't you afraid that I will kill you? Kipling stopped 100 meters away from Wang Ting and asked calmly. Don't be so overconfident. You can't kill me. Wang Ting smiled gently. Admit that you're a genius and possess frightening ability at your young age. It is indeed impressive. However, you're not my match. Illinois kill you today. If the leader of martial arts is unhappy, he can come and look for me. Kipling was extremely conceited, not hiding the malicious intent in his voice one bit. Wang Ting shook his head. He wanted to say something. Wang Ting, leave now. I'll stop him. Alays' voice came from the distance. She flew over with her injured body and wanted to stop Kipling for Wang Ting. Wang Ting glanced at her in surprise. What is this? Despite being injured, she still wanted to help him stop Kipling. Does she like me? The thought suddenly popped into his mind. Wang Ting got a fright. Am I being too narcissistic? This isn't good, not good. Alays didn't know what Wang Ting was thinking. She was filled with guilt. If she hadn't invited him up, these things wouldn't have happened. If it wasn't because of her, Kipling wouldn't have targeted Wang Ting. She felt that she had caused everything and was extremely guilty. If Wang Ting died because of her, she wouldn't be able to live with her conscience. This was why she wanted to stop Kipling for him even though she was seriously injured. She wanted to buy some time for him to escape. Goddess, move. I don't want to kill you for now. Kipling looked at Alays and scoffed. He would have killed her already if she wasn't useful. As someone who had stepped into the darkness, kindness had been thrown out of his dictionary. Alays kept quiet. Instead, light force exploded from her body and shot towards Kipling. At the same time, she shouted to Wang Ting behind her. Leave. You're tempting fate. Kipling was furious. He swung his Mo Bing, and a black sword glow shot towards Alays, cutting through her light force. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 654, Palm of Buddha. In the sky. A black sword glow cut through the sky, arriving in front of Alays in a split second. Kipling didn't show any mercy this time. He attacked in rage. Anyone that dared to prevent him from killing Wang Ting should die. Alays was useful but not that important. He could still kill her. Since she wanted to help Wang Ting, she could follow him to hell. No one expected his hatred towards Wang Ting to be so many times greater than his hatred towards Alays. Wang Ting was indeed outstanding. He had managed to anger Kipling to this stage. Your Highness, Great Sage Fora and the other holy knights were thunderstruck when they saw this scene. The holy knights tumbled into rays of light and dashed towards Alaise. They wanted to save her. However, they were too far away. They couldn't arrive in time. The sword glow reached Alaise in a split second. Fora and the holy knights stared at Alaise with bloodshot eyes, which almost jumped out of their sockets. Boom! In the end, the black sword glow still hit Alaise. Amid a loud explosion, the terrifying sword glow swallowed Alaise. No! Numerous martial warriors from Mount Saint howled in sorrow. They couldn't restrain their emotions. Their belief had collapsed. Kipling! Great Sage Fora bellowed in anger. His face was filled with grief and indignation as he glared at Kipling with red eyes. Kipling didn't back down. He snorted and said, "Anyone that dares to stop me will go to hell, including the goddess." Devil! Great Sage Fora raged. Me? A devil? Kipling burst out laughing as if he had heard an amazing joke. Ha ha ha, you're right, I'm a devil. In the past, a great angel welcomed the darkness and fell to the underworld. Why can't I do the same? You, Great Sage Fora choked. He was in disbelief. Kipling was comparing himself to that taboo. How could he be so conceited and crazy? Where did he get the courage from? Hello? She's not dead yet. Why are you all wailing? Suddenly, they heard a voice at the side. The sorrowful atmosphere froze for a second. Then, there was an eerie silence. Great Sage Fora and the holy knights turned their necks stiffly and looked in the direction of the voice. They saw Wang Teng as well as the lady lying in his arms. It was Alaise. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. The goddess wasn't dead. Fora and the holy knights were overjoyed and surprised. Yet Wang Teng took them as nothing. How infuriating. Don't be impulsive. Kipling possesses dark force, so normal forces can't hurt him. They are the holy knights of Mount Saint and have some methods to deal with the dark force. There will be a higher chance of success if you attack together, Alaise explained to him patiently. Up to you. If you're not afraid of them getting killed, you can ask them to fight, Wang Teng replied nonchalantly. The holy knights were speechless again. This fellow was getting on their nerves. He was cursing them before the fight started. How could he be so evil? Alaise felt the corners of her lips twitching. She took a deep breath and said to the holy knights quickly, "Help Wang Teng catch Kipling. If there's a need, you can kill him." Are you all done talking? Kipling's voice echoed over. If you are, come receive your death. Boom. He turned into a ray of black light and shot towards his opponents. Only 4 holy knights were left by now. They were Arudis from the Taurus Palace, Suang from the Aries Palace, Sharjah from the Virgo Palace, and Mulong from the Libra Palace. They turned into 4 golden rays of light and dashed towards Kipling. Boom, boom, boom. The 4 golden balls of light and the black ball of light clashed in the air, generating loud explosions. Powerful impact waves swept through the mountain. Mulong released his force and turned into a green dragon, gliding through the sky. He moved his dragon body and roared into the sky as he attacked. Suang had a serious expression on his face. He threw back his arms, and the space behind him started distorting. Numerous giant rocks flew over at high speed from afar. They gathered above his head and started spinning around him. They possessed a strong destructive force similar to a meteorite. The area around Suang turned into a frightening death zone. Go! Suang yelled and threw the rocks violently over at Kipling. The giant rocks went forward like shooting stars. On the other side, Sharjah sat cross-legged in mid-air and raised his palm. An appalling scene appeared behind him. The outline of an enormous Buddha was formed. When the giant Buddha raised his palm, there seemed to be a world supported on it. Different layers of space were constructed and developed out of nowhere. They expanded and merged with the outside world. There was no difference in the space inside and outside. Each flower supports a world. Each palm supports a Shakyamuni Buddha world. This was Sharjah's unique and ultimate technique, Palm of Buddha. Buddha is compassionate. Curling the fingers in one hand and forming a palm with another, Buddha descends from heaven to suppress all evil. Boom. Chapter 655, Attack. Palm of Buddha. Kipling raised his head and looked at the gigantic palm falling on him. A sharp glint appeared in his eyes. "I'll know all your skills. The goddess didn't let you guys fight because she was afraid I'd target you. However, you have no choice now. You can only fight. Unfortunately, it's all in vain." Kipling clutched Mo Bing and said calmly. The holy knights had a bad premonition when they heard his words. As a great sage of the holy temple, as someone whose power was just below the goddess, Kipling had a profound understanding of the legacy of the holy temple. He knew the moves of the holy knights like the back of his hand. However, at this stage, there was no turning back. Talk was useless. Boom. The different layers of space on the giant palm seemed to have formed a world of its own. It shrouded over Kipling. Kipling stabbed Mo Bing out. A thick black glow sparkled on his sword, giving out a sword aura that pierced through the sky. The sword glow was pitch black, but the black light was glaring. It lit up the entire sky. The sword ruthlessly stabbed towards the gigantic palm in the sky. Sword aura flashed past, releasing a shrill sonic boom. Boom. An earth-shaking explosion occurred. The world on the giant palm shook violently. Cracks appeared on its outer space. Then, the world collapsed as if it was unable to handle the frightening energy. Splurt. The instant the palm of Buddha was destroyed, Shaja trembled as though he was struck by lightning and vomited a mouth of blood. He was thrown back by the powerful impact. His face was white, and one of his palms was drenched in blood. It trembled continuously. He was unable to raise his hand anymore. What a pity. Wang Ting shook his head sadly. He was surprised. He didn't expect to see this kind of attack in a foreign land. However, it wasn't strange. Buddhism didn't just exist in country Shia, it existed in many other countries. The Holy Knight might have limed this skill from his country of origin. However, there seemed to be some space theory in the palm of Buddha. It looked like Shaja possessed space talent too. He still had his fist in front of him, but his body was frozen on the spot. A black glow flickered on his face. Clearly, the dark force had invaded his body. Suddenly, blood dripped down his forehead and eyes before flowing down his nose, ears, and mouth. His vitality was leaving him like water flooding out of a broken dam. Suang and Mu Long bellowed in anger. They were in grief. Shaja squinted. There was sorrow on his face too. Arudis. Some distance away, Alays and Great Sage Fora gasped in anguish. Another holy knight had died. Visit Riadel. Me for extra chapters. Hes dead. Wang Teng was astounded. He didn't think that Arudis would be so unyielding and fight with his life on the line. This was out of his expectation. It's your turn. Kipling suddenly turned and looked at Wang Teng. Hatred blinked in his eyes as he released his sword. Ablak's sword glow slashed through the sky, aiming straight for Wang Teng's head. Boom. Calm and composed, Wang Teng hurled his fist out. Powerful energy swept through the sky, and the black sword light shattered. Then, he stepped on the ground and disappeared in the blink of an eye. A split second later, he reappeared in front of Kipling. He punched at him again. Fast. Kipling squinted. He was flabbergasted. Wang Teng's physique was astonishing. A talent like him must die. Killing intent boiled in his heart. He raised his palm and welcomed Wang Teng's fist head-on. Their hands collided. Boom. An eruption followed the collision of the fist and the palm. Invisible waves blew against their hair and clothes, which flapped loudly against the wind. Kipling's expression changed slightly. He felt a terrifying strength pouring towards him from the opponent. His arm trembled, and he took 3 steps back involuntarily before he stopped himself. Wang Ting took 3 steps back too. His pupils constricted as he stomped in the air and dashed out. Again, his fists danced wildly in the air as he rained his punches down on Kipling. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 656, Bladesword Tornado. Kipling was certain about his victory and thought that killing Wang Ting would be an easy feat. However, Wang Ting's ability had exceeded his expectations. After exchanging blows, he finally understood how powerful Wang Ting was. He wasn't at the 11-star low-tier general stage. No, he was neck to neck with him. This was unbelievable. Kipling was dumbstruck. He clutched Mo Bing and slashed rays of black sword glow as he fought with Wang Ting again. Wang Ting released his fist and used his physical body and brute force to fight with Mo Bing. Bang, bang, bang. The sword and the fist welcomed each other, creating thundering metallic clangs. Wang Ting smashed his fists out continuously, forcing Kipling to retreat. Some distance away, the remaining holy knights saw this scene and were staggered. Waves of astonishment crashed into their hearts. Wang Ting could suppress Kipling. He was so powerful. Alace's eyes sparkled. She was amazed as well. She had fought with Kipling before, so she knew how powerful he was. She wasn't his match. Yet, Wang Ting could easily keep up with him. He didn't show any signs of disadvantage. She was shocked and pleasantly surprised. She was shocked because Wang Ting's ability exceeded her expectations. The joy was because with Wang Ting's current ability, Mount Saint might be saved. It wouldn't have to land in the hands of Kipling. However, the result was still uncertain. It was too early to make any judgments. She hoped that Wang Ting could survive until the end and defeat Kipling. Your Highness, Mr. Wang Ting is indeed powerful. We might have a chance of winning, Great Sage Fora whispered to Alace. He was surprised too. He resumed addressing Wang Ting as Mr. Yes. Alace nodded. She didn't say much. Great Sage Fora kept quiet too. He stared at the battle in front intently and hopefully. On the other side, Dan Taixian and the others were dumbstruck. They didn't know that Wang Ting's ability had reached this stage. During the Sea Beast's riot at Donghai, Wang Ting had relied on powerful techniques to defeat the windstorm giant ape. But now, he could fight with a top-tier general stage martial warrior without showing any signs of weakness. Not much time had passed since that battle. Yet, Wang Ting had improved tremendously. How did he do it? Miss Dan Taixian, Darwin was tongue-tied. His words got stuck in his throat. Don't ask me. I don't know, Dan Taixian replied with a bitter smile. Valeria was a happy-go-lucky girl, so she didn't care about the reason or any secrets involved in it. She chuckled and said, as expected of the man I like. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. Everyone was speechless. Dumb girl, you might not be able to make him your man. Discussions erupted everywhere. Everyone's attention was on Wang Ting and Kipling. At this moment, the two of them turned into a green and black ray of light and dashed into the sky. Powerful forces collided continuously and formed violent explosions. Wang Ting flew horizontally across the sky. He activated his ancient god's body and punched out the five-element fist conscious. He also released his strength of Ultima. At the moment, his punches were like bullets from a machine gun. Kipling's face turned green as he kept retreating. He felt exasperated. He was stronger than Wang Ting, but why was he the one getting beaten up so badly? He didn't even have a chance of retaliating. What kind of monster was he? You wanted to kill me, right? Why are you retreating now? Wang Ting yelled in anger. While green flames swirled around him, the forces in his body were surging out violently like there was no end. They then turned into powerful attacks. Right now, he was indomitable. He was the god of the world. Impudent! Kipling shouted in anger. Dark force swarmed out of his body, turned into a dazzling black glow, and exploded. Mo Bing clanged loudly. The cries and wails resounded in the sky, wreaking havoc in people's minds. Everything seemed sinister. Clang! A blinding black sword glow soared into the sky like a dragon. A terrifying sword conscious was mixed in the sword glow. There seemed to be an abyss inside, swallowing all the light around it. Kipling flew back and slashed his sword out. The black sword glow split the sky into two as it came for Wang Ting. Receive my sword attack too. Wang Teng turned serious. He took out Mo Q and released the green flames. Instantly, flames lit up the entire sky. Big Dipper flaming blade. 9th level flaming blade conscious. Boom. The green flames burning everywhere gathered together into an unparalleled giant blade. It cut through the sky, even splitting the clouds into two. Amidst the explosion, the flaming blade glow and black sword glow smashed into each other. Boom, boom, boom. Countless explosions deafened the onlookers. A frightening impact wave crashed into the mountain, shaking the earth. It was as if an earthquake was striking Mount Saint. Everyone was scared out of their pants. The people who were standing nearer to them started bleeding from their ears because of the impact. They were shocked and quickly retreated a few hundred meters back. So scary. Some people shivered in fear. Wang Ting is as powerful as Great Sage Kipling. Does that mean he's stronger than Her Highness? Someone exclaimed in disbelief. The situation turned messy. There was an uproar. Gradually, the impact of the attacks died down. Kipling's face turned ugly. A sense of helplessness drifted into his heart when he saw Wang Ting standing opposite him, unscathed. Wang Ting stood in midair and stepped forward. He pointed his Mo Q at Kipling. Kipling looked at the strange weapon and raised his eyebrow. He glanced at his Mo Bing secretly. Mo Bing was trembling slightly, a result of the impact of their earlier exchange. It couldn't stop. This weapon, don't just stand there. Come again, you old fellow. Wang Ting's tone was indifferent. He darted out like an arrow, chopping his weapon down. Clang. Kipling raised his sword hurriedly to block the attack. The two of them got into another round of exchanging blows. Boom, boom, boom. Wang Ting continued attacking, releasing frightening blade glows without stopping. 5-element sword conscious and 5-element blade conscious took turns to show their might. In an instant, colorful blade and sword glows cut through the sky. It was a dazzling sight. The crowd was shocked by the proceedings today. Is he a human? Zhu Yushao muttered to herself. She was stunned. Chu Fei, Mu Jigua, and the others were speechless too. Their gazes kept flickering. He's crazy. Kipling almost broke his teeth from all the grinding. He kept retreating and the hand that was clutching the sword was shaking. He might be powerful, but in front of this bug of the system, who had an impenetrable body and terrifying strength, he couldn't handle the onslaught of attacks. At this moment, he felt regret. Damn it, if I knew this would happen, I won't have offended this fellow. He's a monster. No, if this continues, he'll lose any chance of winning. Kipling gritted his teeth. His gaze turned crazy. Suddenly, he grabbed the blade of Mo Bing and cut his palm. Slash. A large amount of blood spurted out of his palm and landed on Mo Bing. The fresh red blood poured over Mo Bing like scorching hot molten iron. It slid past the complicated runes and seeped into the sword body. No. Alace's expression changed slightly. She shouted, "Stop him. He wants to break the seal on Mo Bing and release the dark force inside." Wang Ting's expression turned grave. It's too late. Kipling laughed hideously. The evilness on his face grew thicker, and a crimson glow appeared in the depth of his eyes, flickering in contempt. Honestly, he might not have noticed anything amiss with himself. You're impressive. You forced me to this step. He looked at Wang Ting. The killing intent in his eyes was at an all-time high. Elle didn't force you, you forced yourself. Idiot. Wang Ting scoffed. Slap. A vein popped out of Kipling's forehead uncontrollably. Young brat, don't be arrogant. Don't think that I can't kill you just because you pushed me into a tight corner. Kipling sneered. Mo Bing shone brightly and gave off a loud ringing noise. Ring, clang metallic sounds were heard too. The black light around Mo Bing squirmed like mist. It seeped into Kipling's body, making the black patterns on his skin even more complicated and deep. They looked eerie. Ah! Kipling raised his head and roared into the sky. Sound waves spread out visibly, and his hair danced crazily in the wind. He looked like a human who had transformed into a devil. Die! Screaming, he pushed all his dark force out, gathering it into a sword of darkness. At the same time, The outline of a terrifying giant beast appeared in the sky. It looked down at Wang Ting with its crimson evil eyes. Wang Ting remained composed despite all the changes taking place. His gaze turned sharp, and he suddenly raised his Mo Q. His force and aura were at their peak. They started to congregate furiously. Boom! Numerous strands of sword and blade consciousness raged around him. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth. He gathered all the consciousness he had in one spot and circled them around him. Soon, a ferocious tornado was formed. Clang, clang, clang. The tornado spun at high speed. As more and more blade and sword consciousness merged into it, it kept expanding. After some time, a large-sized tornado formed from blade and sword consciousness was created. It howled in the sky, linking the earth and the heaven. It looked magnificent. Wang Ting had disappeared into the tornado. The martial warriors were amazed at this scene. They felt a sense of fear rising from the depths of their souls. Was this something a human could do? They felt like they were in a dream. Suddenly, the weapons in their hands started trembling violently and gave off a ringing sound. It was as if they wanted to escape from their hands and become part of the tornado. What is this? Alaze and Great Sage Fora were astounded. Kipling felt his eyebrows jumping. He sensed a great threat from Wang Ting, but at this stage, he had no paths of retreat anymore. Trying to be mysterious, he snorted. The black light blossomed around him, and the sword glow reached its limit. This would be his most powerful attack after merging with Mo Bing. Gol, a black sword glow cut the sky in half. Gol ash out came from the center of the bladesword tornado. The bladesword tornado twirled forward and crashed into the astonishing black sword glow. Boom, boom, boom. Violent explosions rocked the surroundings. The ground shook because of the impact. The black sword glow slammed into the bladesword tornado. Numerous blade and sword consciousness raged inside, chopping the black sword glow and leaving marks on it. The standstill lasted for a few seconds. Boom! Suddenly, amidst a loud explosion, the bladesword tornado blew up. The black sword glow exploded too. They merged and repelled each other, giving birth to a terrifying force impact. Kipling received the brunt of the impact. He flew out like a sandbag and vomited a mouth of blood. He was in disbelief. Chapter 657, You Aren't Sincere in Thanking Me. Boom, boom, boom. A terrifying explosion erupted in the sky. The sword and blade consciousness caused a catastrophe in the sky, almost cutting the sky into numerous segments. The clouds hanging in the sky split into multiple fragments, breaking into pieces as if a child was fiddling with them. Boom! Kipling smashed into the ground. His skin was covered with wounds, and he kept vomiting blood. He was in a miserable state. In the sky, Wang Ting stopped after being pushed back a few meters by the residual force. Great Sage Kipling, lost. Gasp! There was a huge commotion. No one could believe this result. Your Highness, we won, asked Great Sage Fora in disbelief. Alaze took a deep breath and muttered to herself, no wonder he was in the Holy Temple's prophecy. The Holy Temple's prophecy. Great Sage Fora's eyes widened in shock as if he had heard something unbelievable. He was stunned. He looked at Wang Ting, but this time, there was a different emotion in his gaze, respect. Whether he was the man in the Holy Temple's prophecy or not, the ability he had displayed was worth his respect. Great Sage Fora sighed loudly. He didn't probe further. This wasn't the time to discuss such matters as there were many people around them. On the other side, Suang, Shaja, and Mu Long were mind-blown. They forced a smile on their faces. Wang Ting was many times stronger than them. There was no point in comparing. In the past, they weren't convinced and felt that the goddess placed too much importance on Wang Ting. They felt that she had made a mistake. From the looks of it now, the goddess was wiser than them. She might have already realized how extraordinary this young man was. If they knew that Her Highness was surprised by Wang Ting too, how would their expressions change? Humans had such strange thoughts in their minds. Some distance away, Zhu Yushao and her companions glanced at one another. It felt like a dream. If you have problems with this website, Please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. Did Wang Ting manage to defeat the formidable great sage from Mount Saint? Was this the happy-go-lucky Wang Ting they knew? The difference was a little vast. Miss Dan Taixian, congratulations. In these troubled times, your country has groomed another indomitable martial warrior who's able to stand at the peak of the world. His ability alone is enough to protect half your nation, Darwin said with a complicated expression. There was envy in his voice. The envy was real. They knew clearly what the presence of an indomitable martial warrior meant to a country. These martial warriors were the foundation of a country's stability. Dan Taixian glanced at Wang Ting with complex emotions. She was a genius too, and her cultivation speed exceeded most martial warriors. The three great commanders took special care of her and groomed her to be the next generation of commanders. In the end, Wang Ting still caught up with her and even surpassed her. However, as his master, she felt happy at his growth. He was like a child to her. The edge of her lips lifted up and formed a perfect smile. Despite feeling delighted, she waved her hands nonchalantly and replied, "He still has a long way to go. He needs to improve." Darwin felt a few knives stabbing his heart. He was exasperated. Still needs to improve. How high do you want him to climb? If he continued on this path, no one in the world might be Wang Ting's match. However, Dan Taixian wasn't wrong. Wang Ting was still young. He still had many opportunities and possibilities in the future. Who knew? He might be able to reach a level no one dared to think about. He might break the boundaries of Earth's martial warriors and lead them to higher realms. Darwin got shocked by his own thoughts. If he could do this, he would be the pioneer of the world, the forerunner of all human martial warriors on Earth, just like the people who went to the Xingwu continent and led Earth into the martial arts era. Darwin didn't dare to think deeper. However, he knew one thing. He would report this to higher authorities the instant he reached his country. Country Xia could only be a friend, never a foe. He felt fortunate that they chose to stand beside Country Xia this time and didn't back down even when surrounded by the martial warriors from Mount Saint. They had formed a tighter relationship with Country Xia. Cough, cough. Kipling climbed up from the ground and coughed out blood continuously. His hair was in a mess, and his eyes had turned entirely red. He had gone mad. I planned for so long and kept a low profile for so many years. Why is this my ending? Why? Impossible. How can I lose to a little bitch like you? Kipling yelled. His confidence and indifference were gone. He was depressed and seemed to have lost his mind. The unexpected result made him lose himself. Little bitch. Wang Ting was furious. This idiot was scolding him. Where did this old codger who borrowed the power of darkness get the courage to curse him? Did he know that he had killed many pure dark apparitions? Wang Ting was infuriated. He wanted to fly down and teach him a good lesson. At this moment, a sudden change occurred. The giant black outline of a wild beast above Kipling's head suddenly turned red in the eye. It gave a few sinister howls before leaping into Kipling's body without any warning. Aunt Kipling shuddered. He raised his head and screamed in pain. Two crimson glows shot out from his eyes. They were the same color as the beast's. Clang. Mo Bing started ringing in his hand. The sound was jarring and pierced right into the listener's brain. Many people clutched their heads uncontrollably. At the same time, wisps of dark force surged out of Kipling's body like waves. They swept all around him. Some people didn't manage to evade in time and got swallowed by the dark force. Crying in agony, they started changing. Numerous black patterns crawled up their bodies like tiny snakes. Their hands, legs, faces, everywhere that was visible got covered with black patterns. Move. Alace's expression changed when she saw this scene. She shouted in a hurry. Everyone shot back and released their forces to resist the invasion of the dark force. Wang Ting's gaze flickered when he saw this unexpected change. He looked down at Kipling, who had lost his consciousness. Ha ha ha, a peal of eerie laughter came from Kipling's mouth. He raised his head slightly and stared at Wang Ting with his crimson eyes. "I must thank you." A hoarse voice rose from his throat. All words but no actions. Why don't you give me that weapon you're holding? Wang Teng asked. The assimilated Kipling turned silent. No. Seems like you aren't sincere in thanking me. So hypocritic. Wang Teng scoffed. The assimilated Kipling, everyone, they were in a daze. The atmosphere turned strange suddenly as everyone's gaze landed on Wang Teng. How did this fellow manage to grow up smoothly? Why hadn't anyone beat him to death? Chapter 658, Devil Lord Kai Yang ha ha ha. After a few moments of silence, the assimilated Kipling started laughing again. Stop laughing. It's disgusting, Wang Teng said. The assimilated Kipling choked once again. His laughter stopped abruptly. Young man, do you want to die? His voice sounded a little irritated. I don't. Wang Teng replied. No wonder this old fellow wanted to kill you. I want to kill you too. The assimilated Kipling took a deep breath before speaking. Boom. A terrifying dark force erupted from his body like a volcano. It was thicker and stronger than what the original Kipling possessed. His body started changing too. It swelled up, tearing his long gown. Moreover, a pair of sharp horns penetrated the skin on his head and grew out. There were 2 balls of black flames burning on the horns. A wave of scorching heat swept over. Wang Teng was stunned. He felt the emerald-glazed flame in his body getting restless. Huh! He gasped softly. While Kipling was undergoing mutation, a few attribute bubbles had dropped. Dark flame *10 dark flame *8 dark flame *6 dark flame. Wang Teng was startled. He immediately felt a small ball of black fire burning in his body. The small flame was only the size of his fingernail. It shrunk beside the emerald-glazed flame like a chick standing beside the hen, weak and helpless. Wang Teng's expression turned strange. This extraordinary flame he just received was so small. He didn't know if he should feel happy. In this short span of time, Kipling had changed entirely. He didn't look like a human anymore. Instead, he looked like a dark apparition with sheep horns. Wang Teng stared at him weirdly. Was this person addicted to shapeshifting? He had mutated once before, and now, he was doing it again. The last time, he became younger, but he turned into a monster this time. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. Ha ha ha, he laughed like a maniac, delighted and excited. His laughter grew louder and echoed in the sky. I'm finally free. Isn't it a bit too early to be happy? You're surrounded. How can you run away? Wang Teng asked. Surrounded. The assimilated Kipling sniggered. By you all? No, just me. The assimilated Kipling was stunned for a moment before he reacted. One person surrounding him? F***K, he was teasing him. The assimilated Kipling raged. Dark force churned inside him. Alaise came over and stared gloomily at the assimilated Kipling. She said in a low voice, "This is the devil's soul sealed inside the weapon." A powerful high-level dark apparition was sealed inside Mo Bing after he was killed by the martial warriors on Mount Saint. Kipling has released him. High-level dark apparition? How powerful was he? Wang Teng asked. Based on our records, this should be a devil lord. His soul is too powerful, so my ancestors couldn't kill it. They could only use light force to slowly consume its vitality over many years, Alaise explained. A devil lord. Wang Teng's expression didn't change, but deep inside, he felt staggered. He could still remember what happened during the Star Maple City battle when the Black Incubus Devil Lord came to the Xingwu continent. Even though many formidable martial warriors had joined hands, they still couldn't defeat the Black Incubus Devil Lord. They had spent a Herculean effort to make her retreat, but they still couldn't kill her. In the end, she escaped back to the Darkland and even brought Wang Teng with her. If he wasn't skillful and powerful enough, he would have died in the Darkland and never come back. He wasn't being arrogant, but any other person in his situation would have died. Yet, the formidable warriors on Mount Saint could suppress a Devil Lord. Seriously? This wasn't the time to delve deeply into this matter. Wang Teng turned serious and asked, he doesn't have much power left, right? After all these years, the light force has consumed most of his power. Has only left with 1/10 of it. But, has still more powerful than a 13-star top-tier general stage martial warrior, Alaise said sternly. This little girl is right. Although I'm only left with a fraction of my power, it's still enough to kill you all. The assimilated Kipling gradually rose into the sky and looked at Wang Teng and Alaise mockingly. Oh right, remember my name. I'm Devil Lord Kai Yang. Actually, we're not really interested in your name, Wang Teng reminded him as he turned around and glanced at him. He realized that this fellow was a little narcissistic. Devil Lord Kai Yang. There were a few seconds of silence. Then, he continued indignantly, young brat, you're really tired of living. I hope that you can keep your sharp tongue when I break your neck later. Wang Teng gasped and took a step back. Patting his chest, he exclaimed, I'm so afraid. Veins popped out of Devil Lord Kai Yang's forehead. The black flames on his horns bounced a few times involuntarily. Alaise was speechless too. She didn't know that Wang Ting was such a weirdo. Even she felt fearful when facing a devil lord, yet Wang Ting could tease and mock him as he pleased. She honestly wondered what was inside this young man's head. Devil Lord Kai Yang ignored Wang Ting. He soared into the sky and released a terrifying aura out of his body. It hung low over Mount Saint like ominous dark clouds. To celebrate my release, everyone present must die. The evil voice resounded across the mountain. Everyone was scared when they heard the voice and felt the frightening aura. What is happening? How did Great Sage Kipling become so terrifying? Many people didn't understand what had happened. They only saw Devil Lord Kai Yang getting released after Kipling's mutation. However, they didn't know who Devil Lord Kai Yang was. Devil Lord. He called himself Devil Lord. He isn't Great Sage Kipling anymore. He's possessed by the Devil Lord. Someone noticed the change and exclaimed in shock. Dan Taixian and Darwin were dumbstruck. They looked at the Devil Lord Kai Yang in the sky fearfully. After exchanging glances with one another, they dashed towards Wang Teng and Alaise. What happened? They asked anxiously. There was a Devil Lord sealed in the weapon. Kipling released him and got a taste of his own medicine. He's possessed, Wang Teng shrugged and explained briefly. Devil Lord. It's a real Devil Lord. Dan Taixuan's expression turned grim. Yes. Besides a Devil Lord, no one can have such a powerful aura. Even a 13-star general stage martial warrior lacks the ability. Darwin agreed. There's nothing to be afraid of. He has been locked up for many years, so has probably a paper tiger now. Don't be afraid, just fight with him, Wang Teng said. Everyone was speechless. They wished they could beat him up properly. Chapter 659, Mount Saint Calamity. The atmosphere turned tense at the sudden release of Devil Lord Kai Yang's aura. However, Dan Taixian and the others just felt speechless. What do you mean by just fight with him? You make it sound so simple. Hello. That's a Devil Lord. Why don't you fight with him? They decided to ignore Wang Teng. This fellow's thinking couldn't be understood with common logic. Everyone, we need to work together to defeat Devil Lord Kai Yang. Alaise took a deep breath before speaking. Your Highness, Mount Saint has managed to seal Devil Lord Kai Yang for many years. You must have a way of suppressing him, right? Dan Taixian asked. Comment. That's right. We enshrine the holy flame in our holy temple. This flame of light is the natural enemy of the darkness. In the past, the formidable warriors on Mount Saint used this holy flame to suppress Devil Lord Kai Yang's devil shadow flame and destroyed his physical body, Alaise explained. The holy flame. Everyone got excited when they heard this. They had no confidence in dealing with Devil Lord Kai Yang, but when they heard that there was a way of bringing him down, they became hopeful again. They weren't afraid of losing the battle, they were afraid of losing hope. Your Highness, can you take him down? Dan Taixian asked hurriedly. The holy flame is extremely powerful. None of the past goddesses of the holy temple could control it. You can only use it if you pass the arrays in the holy temple. So I must go back to the temple. But... Alaise hesitated. But what? Darwin asked anxiously. During the fight with Kipling, some dark force entered my body, and I have to use light force to suppress it. I might not have enough energy to activate the array. Alaise felt helpless and bitter. The crowd's expression changed. This was exasperating. She gave them hope and then took it away instantly. Could you finish your statement all at once? Everyone looked at Alaise with resentment. Alaise was startled. Despite having a composed personality, she felt a little helpless. The situation was critical, but she couldn't do her part. She felt guilty. Let me accompany her. Wang Ting opened his mouth at this moment. Oh right, Wang Ting is a highly skilled runemaster. He might find a way around it, Dan Taixian said. Her eyes lit up. Runemaster? Everyone was shocked. They looked at Wang Ting in disbelief. A runemaster at such a young age? Are you kidding? Trust me. I don't know how this fellow's brain works either, but he learns many things, and his mastery in all of them is quite high. It is astonishing, Dan Taixian explained. The crowd finally accepted this fact after seeing how firm she was. But they were still dumbfounded. Darwin, Valeria, Great Sage Fora, and many others looked at Wang Ting as if he were a monster. The Holy Knights had also come over by now and heard their conversation. They were a little dejected. Not only were his martial arts powerful, but he was also able to achieve mastery in a career that required intelligence and talent. They seemed pretty useless compared to him. How did he do it? The three Holy Knights didn't understand how a talent like him could exist in this world. A runemaster might not be enough. We also have runemasters on Mount Saint, but they couldn't do anything to the array in the Holy Temple. Although they have tried multiple times over the years, the result is the same. You need to have light force. If not, you can't activate the array. Great Sage Fora doused a bucket of cold water over everyone. There was silence once again. This was frustrating. They didn't know that the Holy Temple's array had so many requirements. To them, it was a white elephant. What was the point of fighting? They should just wait and die. Boom. An explosion came from the sky. Their conversation lasted for a few minutes, but Devil Lord Kai Yang wouldn't wait for them to finish. He was finished with his transformation and had complete control of his new body. Dark force churned in his body like raging waves. Devil Lord Kai Yang clenched his fist and savored the taste of regaining his strength. He laughed uncontrollably. Suddenly, a black flame shot out of his body. Ablac light flashed in his eyes, and the black flame started growing in size. Soon, it covered the entire sky. Roaring black flames swept over, blocking all hope and pushing everyone into the abyss of despair. Die. With a wave of Devil Lord Kai Yang's hand, the black flames plummeted down. Alaise's expression changed entirely. Dodge. Don't let it touch you. However, the black flames had already fallen on the ground before she finished speaking. They burned everything in their path like a forest fire. Some people were quite unlucky. They got hit by the flames and started burning, howling in pain. The screams were filled with agony and despair. In the blink of an eye, these torched humans were reduced to ashes. Nothing was left. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. Suang, Sharjah, Mu Long, gather all the martial warriors on Mount Saint to resist the Devil Shadow Flame. Remember, don't come into contact with it. Only use your force to stop it, Alaise ordered sternly. Yes, the three Holy Knights replied in unison. They turned into 3 rays of light and shot into the crowd. Thick force swarmed out of their bodies and formed a protective shield, blocking the black flames outside. Don't panic. Release your forces. We shall resist the Devil Shadow Flame together, Suang shouted. The martial warriors were alarmed at the start, but they had calmed down now. Though still frightened, under the command of the Holy Knights, they released their forces and pushed back the black flames. The other powerful martial warriors of the Holy Temple were on guard. They were prepared to fight with Devil Lord Kai Yang once he attacked. They were at a standstill. They've to go to the Holy Temple to give it a try, Alaise said agitatedly. She knew that they couldn't resist for long. Before anyone could reply, she rushed towards the holy temple. Wang Ting kept quiet and turned into a ray of light, following her closely. Great Sage Fora hesitated when he saw this. The holy temple was an extremely important place on Mount Saint. No one could enter it easily, and there were restricted areas for guests. But all the powerful martial warriors of the holy temple had come out. If Wang Ting entered the restricted areas, he would see all their secrets. Great Sage Fora felt helpless when he remembered the current situation. Never mind, if we can't overcome this ordeal, the holy temple will be destroyed anyway. Her Highness has high hopes for him. I hope she isn't wrong. Great Sage Fora sighed. Then, his pupils constricted, and he looked at Devil Lord Kai Yang in the sky. He was worried. This is Mount Saint's calamity. Chapter 660, Light Physique. Dark Flame *5 Dark Force *300 Dark Flame *3 Wood Force *520 Earth Force *450 Dark Force *680 Before Wang Ting left, he released his spiritual power and picked up the attribute bubbles around him. Without counting, he already felt that it was a huge gain. Especially the Dark Force. When he defeated Kipling, the guy had dropped a huge number of Dark Force attribute bubbles. The appearance of Devil Lord Kai Yang and his possession of Kipling's body would similarly give him many Dark Force attributes. Thinking about it, Wang Ting felt that he must thank Kipling. Without that old fellow, he wouldn't be able to gain so many Dark Force attribute bubbles. What a kind man. He would forgive him for calling him a bitch. After all, that old man might be dead. Of course, besides Dark Force, there were many other elements too. They were dropped by the martial warriors who got killed by the Devil Shadow Flame. Wang Ting was earning from the dead. Then, there was the Dark Flame. As the Dark Flame attributes merged into his body, he felt a scorching heat climbing his forehead. The small little black flame shuddered a little and grew slightly bigger. The feeling he had this time was a little different. It was quite mysterious. The attribute points were changed into a flame. This was different from the way he obtained the emerald glazed flame the other time. He didn't think that he could use this method to obtain a divine fire. Without a doubt, this dark flame was a kind of divine fire. The relevant information had appeared in his mind not long after he received it. This flame originated in the Darkland. It could only be born in places with the thickest and purest dark force. But that wasn't the only criterion. There were other requirements, such as the location had to maintain the thick and pure dark force for thousands or even millions of years. If there was a gap, the efforts would all be in vain. Hence, the chances of birthing this dark flame were extremely low. This requirement alone was enough to bring the possibility down to almost zero. Coincidentally, the birthplace of Devil Lord Kai Yang was a treasured location with such qualities. Hence the rumors that he came into this world along with the dark flame. This made Wang Ting extremely curious about the holy flame of the holy temple. He wondered what kind of flame it was. If it was another divine fire, this would be a great harvest for him. He had two reasons for following Alaise. One was to use the holy flame to defeat Devil Lord Kai Yang, and the other was to see what treasures were hidden in the holy temple. If you have problems with this website, please continue reading your novel on our new website myboxnovel.com. Thanks. He had picked up an enormous number of attribute bubbles in the 12 zodiac palaces. The holy temple wouldn't be worse, right? Great Sage Fora was right. Letting Wang Ting into the holy temple was inviting a wolf into the house. When Devil Lord Kai Yang saw Wang Ting and Alaise dashing towards the holy temple, he immediately understood their intention. He waved his hand, and the black flames turned into two hideous giant pythons. They slithered after the two martial warriors. Hiss! The giant pythons hissed madly. They seemed exactly like real pythons and were covered with black flames, looking majestic. Be careful. Dan Taixian and Great Sage Fora's expression changed. They shouted in a hurry. Alaise's face was pale. She was seriously injured. If she used her light force again, she would receive a backlash from the rampant dark force in her body. At that time, all hope would be lost. Wang Ting snorted and fired two flaming blade glows with his Mo Q. The two giant pythons hissed in anger and got destroyed in an instant. The dark flame had special effects against force attacks, but it had no advantages in front of another divine fire. A sharp glint flashed past Devil Lord Kai Yang's eyes. Divine fire. Ha ha ha, I have been searching for another divine fire for many years but couldn't find it. Yet, I found it on the first day of my resurrection. Heaven is helping me. Devil Lord Kai Yang laughed. He was elated. Greediness and yearning were apparent on his face. Wang Teng turned around and flipped him a birdie. Idiot. Then, he left with allays. Dan Taixian, great sage Fora, and the others rushed forward and cut between them. They stopped Devil Lord Kai Yang from attacking again. Irritating. Devil Lord Kai Yang's face turned black. He gathered his dark flame and hurled attacks at them. The martial warriors remained vigilant. Not daring to put down their guards in front of this Devil Lord, they executed their most powerful attacks to welcome the opponent. The other formidable warriors from the Holy Temple joined in too. They scattered around the Devil Lord and threw their attacks at him continuously. Alaise and Wang Teng arrived outside the Holy Temple. Alaise didn't stop. She strode straight into the Holy Temple. Wang Teng followed behind her hurriedly while sighing in his heart. He was supposed to come here as a guest, but look at everything that had happened. Fortunately, he was still able to walk in with no one stopping him. He was trying to save everyone. Who dared to stop him? If the people in the Holy Temple were insensible again, he would turn and leave. He might not be able to defeat Devil Lord Kai Yang, but he could help his companions escape safely. Entering the Holy Temple, a long corridor welcomed them. Tall pillars lined the sides of the corridor. There were many carvings on the pillars, but Wang Teng didn't have the time to look at them carefully. They walked past the corridor and into the temple. Wang Teng followed behind Alaise and finally arrived at a large hall after taking many turns. An enormous statue of a goddess stood erect right in the middle of the hall. She was holding a scepter in one hand and a shield in another. The scepter was the same as Alaise. The only difference was the size. Below the goddess status, a white flame was blooming and burning quietly on a stone platform. Wang Teng looked at it strangely. He saw a virtual image of a unicorn within the flame. It was lying in the flame, hibernating. But soon, his attention was attracted by the large number of attribute bubbles scattered in the hall. He was overjoyed. There were so many of them. The entire hall was filled with attribute bubbles shimmering in white light. They were of different sizes and they floated around the goddess statue. It was a magnificent sight. Get it? Light Force *50 Light Force *45 Light Physique *S Light Force *80 Light Physique *10 Light Force *90 Light Force *68 Wang Ting suppressed the joy in his heart and collected all the attribute bubbles around him with a sweep of his spiritual power. However, very soon, he couldn't contain his excitement anymore. Light Physique. Light Force. Wang Ting wanted to laugh. This was good stuff. He received a special physique and a large number of force attributes. Who said there weren't any free lunches in the world? You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,